This is the Hagmann and Hagmann Report for today. It is Tuesday, a tumultuous Tuesday indeed. This is a live broadcast. It is the 14th day of January 2014. I'm Doug Hagmann, co-host along with my son Joe Hagmann. Together we are the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. Folks, you're about to hear 3 hours of incredible radio programming, in my view, 3 hours of unbiased and uncensored news, information, and an analysis that you need to know in these perilous times. You're listening to the only show where the news is presented to you in 3D. We look on the headlines, the bylines, the fog of disinformation, the manipulation, the minutia, to bring you the news behind the news. The only 3 hours that you really need to know or need to listen to in radio. We broadcast live each and every weeknight from 8 to 11 p.m. Eastern Time. You can find us on the Internet. Our home base is HomelandSecurityUS.com. We're also simulcast by the Christians United Broadcasting Network. There, tune us in at Homeland Security, or I'm sorry, yeah, I'll get it right one of these days. There you can tune us in at the Hagmann and HagmannReport.com. You got to spell it all out. Hagmann has two N's, and of course spell out the word and. Thanks for joining us, and thank you for your belief and trust in us as we walk through this minefield of current events together. I got to tell you, tonight's broadcast, portions thereof, sponsored by Audible.com, a leading provider of spoken audio information and entertainment. Help us help you listen to audiobooks whenever and wherever you want. By the way, including 1 second after. More about that later in the broadcast. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to a very fine Tuesday edition, Tuesdays with Stan, coming up tonight. Very excited about that. Don't forget to send well wishes and birthday greetings to Holly Dale, whose birthday is upcoming. And, of course, your questions for Stan. Joe, welcome to the night. Welcome to the broadcast. Welcome to the studio. You're tardy as usual. Of course, I'm
tardy. Tardy. I think I was here before you got here today. So what does that make if I'm tardy?
Well, late.
Okay. No, but you had a good reason.
Yeah,
he had to have a driver today.
No. It's all right.
We had to. We're worried about my father. You know, he's a very great writer, and he's squinting a lot. So he had to go get his eyes checked out, and sure enough, needs a change in the old bifocals he's got on. And
Hey, no.
No, that was what he had going on today. But no, we've been in the studio working on different things, but both of us working in here. And I guess we'll do a little housekeeping here. We have Stan tonight, the second hour, and we have some questions that came via email, and we're going to get into those. And I think Stan wants to get into the ice on debris and a few other topics that...
All I know is I'm wearing my bicycle helmet outside every time I go out. I mean, my wife makes me wear them inside, the helmet inside, because I, bump in the walls, so I might as well wear it outside in case I get struck by a meteor. But, I wonder if that would help, though.
Yeah, there was an interesting story about duck and cover, and I'm not sure. I saw the story a few times. Somebody sent it to me yesterday also, and on Sunday night there was a lot of reports. And for those who haven't followed the ISON story after it's died down, a lot of people have been saying that we're going to be entering a debris field, and the debris field around the 12th of January, some say through the 15th, some say through at least 7 days. But we had on Sunday a large number of fireball reportings in the sky. There was a huge one in Connecticut. There was one in Japan. There was a bunch of other smaller ones across the country, some in Australia. And we're going to talk with Stan and figure out, are we seeing, is this by chance, does have something to do with ISON, or what is this? We had no meteor showers that were scheduled for this time.
Month. No, I think we did, don't we? I think that there's this normal meteor pattern. I was looking at this very early this morning. I thought I saw that we're in a window for meteors, but what bothers me a little bit, though, is the increase in frequency. I mean, look, meteors happen, right? I mean, they do happen. Meteorites, meteors, things that come down. But are we looking at something perhaps a little bit more
are we exponential? In a danger zone from ISON? Is that what we're seeing, or is this regular space behavior?
There was talk about this huge piece of debris out there. It was my understanding that was overstated, that was hyped up, that was not anything to worry about, even though it was pseudo NASA sponsored. Folks, I don't know whether you saw that or not. it's getting increasingly more and more difficult. And I've got to say this, as I look through this, the news that is coming out, I'm seeing two different things happen. I'm seeing, number one, I'm seeing people propagate rumors and hype the existing news. We don't need to do that. It's bad enough as it is. We don't need to hype it up. We don't need to make it any more dire than what it already is, in my view, anyway. And then I see on the second part of it, I see this increase in. I'll just come out and say it: government agents, operatives, paid assets, the Obama hit squad, and I shouldn't even say Obama. I'll just say the government hit squad, because it's really not affiliated with any type of right-left thing. It seems like a lot of disinformation is coming from the government.
Absolutely, disinformation. And as the Insider called in yesterday in regards to shedding some insight as to a story we talked about yesterday, where a man named Andrew Bulkowski had a top secret clearance. Was pulled over.
Get the name right. Boguslawski or something like that.
Boguslawski? Okay.
Yeah.
He was pulled over in Ohio. He had over 48 explosive devices on him, a bunch of guns, ammunitions, blueprints to military bases. And he talked about how McVeigh, the lost time that McVeigh spent. And do you remember not too long ago we had that video of, I think it was Mr. Trinidad in Oklahoma City, where the FBI said they lost the surveillance tapes from the actual Ryder truck pulling up in front of the building there. You had it up on the site as an article. Right. This was a few months back, and there's a lot of unanswered questions about Oklahoma City still. But yeah, from the Olympic hype to the things we're seeing, you see this either retraction, which we see here in this Olympics, or in most other cases, sporting events or big political events happening, there's always this false flag hype. And it seems that we know that Cass Sunstein, is it Cass Sunstein, who talked about infiltrating the alternative media through hiring?
It was Cass Sunstein, or it was Van Jones. It was one of the two characters.
Right, and this was years ago, where they laid out a plan to have thousands and thousands of paid disinformation agents to marginalize people online. And I'm sure that they're up to 10,000 by now of paid people online that sit there, and it's their job every day to belittle people who are spreading truth or turning people in the right direction, to tear down or marginalize the beliefs of things that oppose the agenda that's being implemented. And we have to weed through this disinformation. We have to be careful, because we see and know from people and from ourselves and our own research that their agenda is being moved forward.
That's right.
Now, and I do believe that the attention that what happened with Syria recently pushed back their agenda, but they're going to get it through regardless. But the more people that are picking up the real kernels of truth and not sensationalizing them, not hyping them up, because they don't, as you said, there's no need to hype these up. These are the people that we need to continue to pick up what they do and share their information. But you're going to see people come against them. And these are, it's one thing to have critics. It's another thing to have somebody or 10 people, no matter what you do or say, always going against you. And then decide,
I don't mind critics. I don't mind people who say, "Look, I disagree with you here and there." Right. As long as it's intellectual, as long as it's intellectually done, from a normal person, not a paid operative.
Correct. And I guess the question is, how do you differentiate between the two? But yeah, criticism is fine. It's healthy, and you can use it to your advantage, because as far as we're concerned, we're not veterans here on the radio. We have lots of room for correction. So the criticism is good, but when it's done in a way that is nasty, impolite, when they lie, marginalize, we have to look at this. And it doesn't matter who they're marginalizing. We have to look at who they are and why are they doing it, whether we believe with what the people say or not, or agree with what the people say or not.
Exactly. And you're right. I mean, we're always open to criticism. We're always open to correction, and correction is a very important thing, because we cannot afford to spread disinformation. This brings me up to something. I'm going to start and finish. I mentioned this one last time tonight. I talked about this at the opening of the show last night, and because, well, there are a lot of reasons for this. But let me just say this: today, if you visit Canada Free Press today, Judy McLeod wrote an article about Tom Barley. Tom Barley is a friend of mine. He is on WBEN AM 930. He's a talk show host, and of course he's the subject of some severe marginalization. Yeah, an attack. I had
a full-page article in a Buffalo News.
Well, not only that, Joe, and this is something I didn't share with you today. We didn't really talk a lot. But this has made news in Los Angeles. This has made news all over the country. This is big in Talkers Magazine.
Tom Barley?
Yeah, okay. Talkers Magazine. It's huge. Okay, and that's the equivalent of essentially neutering. If you want to never get a job in the talk show industry, you just get a bad name with Talkers Magazine, and they'll just that's kind of like being blacklisted. But I had some dialogue with Mr. Bowerly today, and it's bad. The whole thing is bad. Now, I'll say this, okay? There's so much more to this than you know.
And that goes for me too, guys.
Yeah. I don't want to sound mysterious because that's not, or cryptic. I just want to be very careful with what I say because I know that this is being recorded. I know that people are listening to this, and I just want to be very, very careful. And I don't want to speak out of school, but I can tell you this. Much or what has been attributed to Tom is untrue. Much of what has been attributed to Tom is untrue. Much of what Tom has undergone in the last 45 to 60 days is something that people would probably not, the average person would not be able to survive. All right. Now, let me give you a little bit of backstory because this involves me as well, unfortunately, or fortunately. It doesn't matter. We're in the trenches together. Just so people know this, and this is an important backstory that relates to the truth, the truth movement. I hesitate to use that phrase, but in 2004 and 2005, folks, we conducted, in our capacity as a licensed investigative agency, I had a gentleman that was working for me. He's now deceased, and we conducted in 2004 and 2005 surveillance of several locations of Islamic facilities throughout the state of New York. Now, before I realized that something was terribly wrong, number one was we set our sights on Jamaat al-Fukra. It's a terrorist organization. Well, it once was a terrorist organization, at least designated by the United States Department of State. They were subsequently removed as a designated terrorist organization. Nonetheless, we conducted covert surveillance of Jamaat al-Fukra. Now, since then, there was another organization who had taken our research and wrote a book. It's a Christian organization. And I'm just not going to name that organization. I'll just leave it at that. And they, of course, dedicated a website to this, and a lot of the investigative material that I submitted to the Department of Justice was transferred to this website and to this book. And the only collaboration I've done with respect to the Jamaat al-Fukra, the Muslims of the Americas, particular terrorist organization, the only collaboration I made was with the Department of Justice, the FBI, and Judy McLeod. Now, Tom Barley was in on this right from the beginning. The tentacles of this organization and related organizations reached into suburban or urban Buffalo. We had, and you've probably heard me talk about this before. You were there,
and I've been to some of these places, and not somewhere you really want to be. It's alarming. Very alarming.
I think what I'm going to do, based on events of the last, 72 hours, I think what I'm going to do is I'm just going to throw everything up on the website. I'm just going to put it all out there. I'm thinking about doing that. Not the things that relate to Tom Byerly, but to the investigation. Because here's what happened. And ladies and gentlemen, you be the judge of this. We had done surveillance, physical surveillance, covert surveillance of various locations. As I said, the terrorist compounds in the Catskills. Now, I say terrorist compounds. There will be many, many people who will say those are not terrorist compounds. Those are Boy Scout camps. And when I say Boy Scout camps, I mean Boy Scout camps. Of course, I guess that would broaden your definition of a Boy Scout camp when there's training done with not the semi-automatic but fully automatic weapons such as AK-47s. And the target, of course, being school buses. Yes. Well, we had also done surveillance in multiple locations in Buffalo, Catskill Mountains, other locations relating to, including but not limited to the Islamic Society of North America in Buffalo and surrounding areas, in Binghamton, New York, the 5 boroughs in New York City. And Tom and I shared this information, and we provided this information to the federal government. The federal government, as I mentioned yesterday, before the ink was even dry on their investigative reports, the reports found their ways into the hands of the very people that we were investigating. Now, as investigators, if you're a cop listening to this, or if you're an investigator listening to this, you know the dangers behind that. You know that it's not a good place to be. Well, when that happened, Tom and I were talking because Tom got a call. I got a call saying, "Hey, guess what? Your reports are in the hands of the bad guys, so to speak." And I say bad guys, well, the subjects of your surveillance. Now, at the same time, remember, does this name ring a bell to anyone? Muzzamil Hassan? Never called him Muzzamil Hassan. I call him Mo. Folks, is it ringing any bells to you guys? Mo Hassan? It should, even if you don't live in New York, the state of New York. Mo Hassan is the guy on 2 days before Valentine's Day in 2009 decided to, instead of having his wife divorce him for the reports of beating her, he decided to behead his wife in the stations of the Bridges television in Western New York. Tom and I had both engaged Mo Hassan numerous times from 2006 to 2009, we had demanded his, we had initially inquired and then asked and then demanded to see the sources of his funding for his radio or for his television station. He refused. And at times the exchange got very heated, and there were some things that were said that were not too pleasant. Of course, we did turn this over to the federal authorities before the beheading trial. In the run-up to that, I was in my home one night, and I got a knock on the door. And my wife and I were talking about this today, just to make sure our memories were correct. And I had to pull out my notes to make sure everything was correct. Got a knock on the door and opened the door, and there were 2 federal agents outside my door. And I invited them in, and we sat down at my dining room table, and they tossed a page down on my dining room table and said, "Look at this." And there was a single page, and I still have it in my file, one page with 2 photographs. One was Mo Hassan, and the second gentleman I will not mention. They're associates. And they said, the agents said, "Look, just want you to know that if you continue your investigation, you probably not want to continue your investigation." And I asked why, and they said, it's for your own safety. Well, lo and behold, in 2009, Mo Hassan takes a knife and cuts the head off his wife. Oh, yes, and then kicks her head across the floor, reportedly kicks her head across the floor in the TV station studio. That's reportedly, I say, just for those sticklers out there recording this. But in 2006, the two agents knocked on my door and really kind of put me into a situation where, had to rethink things. Within 2 weeks of that, I'm going to be very careful with what I say here. And I'll just leave it as an open-ended we. You can read between the lines. We're advised by an agent of the FBI that we were the intended targets of a takedown, of a hit. And there was more than one person involved in this on both sides. According to this agent, the the FBI had physical and wiretap surveillance of the individuals who were supposedly involved in this. Now, you might think this is absolutely insane. Believe me, I did. But I guess you deserve to know the backstory.
Yeah, and the honor killings, for people who are surprised about that happens a lot more than people would actually guess here in this country. It's underreported. It's usually domestic, and they try to keep it that way.
Yep.
But I do remember the one instance, the guy that you were talking about that you were investigating, how it came up, and I think he was found guilty, was he not?
Of the beheading? Yes. He was found guilty, and it made CNN, and yeah. But what really struck me is being problematic, and this is still ongoing. So that's why there's an issue here with this discussion. We were told that in one case that there was a hit placed on us, and Steve Quayle knows about this, and he understands this. He knows about it. In fact, he was one of the intended targets. Well, we had an agent call us and say, look, they're on their way. We're going to stop them, but they're on their way. Just thought you'd like to know. They were stopped, and of course, I wouldn't be here talking if they weren't. When I requested, and I'm going to fast forward here, when I requested information about this from the FBI, they declined my requests, both in writing and verbally, in the interest of, quote, national security. Now, within that same time period, Sheikh Mubarak Ali Jalani from Jamaat al-Fukra raised his ugly head and issued a religious statement against us. You've heard me talk about that before. But what you haven't heard is there's been a continuation of this. The continuation is that they have, I was told that Jamaat al-Fukra, as well as others, and they're connected. See, Jamaat al-Fukra, by the way, is largely African-American Muslim community. That's kind of their specialty. You're not going to find any Arab American Muslims. You're going to find African-Americans. Well, there is a continuing threat there. And it was also during this time, and I'm not going to equate this to Jamaat al-Fukra or anyone else, but it was also during this time that our car had this unnatural explosion.
Fire response explosion?
Yeah. Which, And
that was such an odd situation pertaining to that, which we don't have to get into, but
it was just weird.
We filled up the car with gas, got out of the car, walked into a store, no less than 2 minutes of being in there, the car was fully engulfed in flames.
Yeah, and of course all the evidence conveniently burned up in the fire because it was just totaled. But and it's as a side note, by the way, if you've ever seen a car, it's not like the movies, but it's interesting when the tires explode. I just found that probably the most interesting part of that, when the tires explode.
Yeah, and you remember that time they ran us off the road and we went into the woods and the. No, that was my fault. I'm trying to pass the buck there.
Actually. But anyway, but I'm really considering putting all this up on the website, just spilling everything out, because people look at situations and they have no idea. They have absolutely no idea as to what goes on in the background. And I'm not trying to be or to claim to be a martyr or anything like that. No, I'm not. It's just folks, you just understand. we're busy, okay? There's a lot of stuff going on in the background. But see, here's the insidious part. The very people that we are investigating are the very people who seem to be close to the people who are investigating them. For example, the Islamic compounds, there are photographs. And the Mubarak Ali Jalani, this despicable human being, although he creates himself or bills himself as a humanitarian out of Pakistan, yeah, he was the guy that Daniel Pearl was on his way to meet when he was kidnapped and beheaded. Anyway, of course, which at the time he was out building houses on the side of a mountain in Pakistan for the poor and infirm, so he had no idea. And it was subsequently cleared by the FBI. Yes, he was. So, to be fair, he was cleared by the FBI. But nonetheless, this is all in the background. How does this relate to Tom? Well, this is all part of. This is stuff that. Do you think the Buffalo News would print this? No, of course not. Do you think that anything? Some people are so damn quick to judge. I'm sorry about this, but I'm angry about this. You've got no idea, ladies and gentlemen, what goes on in the background. And you know, if you're ever sitting at your house, and just picture this, you're sitting in your house on a cold night, and you're just sitting with your wife, and a knock on the door, and maybe you've got a couple of young kids, and a couple of FBI agents walk in and say, hey, guess what? There's a contract out on your life. You know, I'll tell you something. It kind of messes with your mind. It does, and I'm not saying that, woe is me. I'm just saying, before people judge out there, please know that there's more to it than what you see. But the other part of this is the cozying up, and as I had mentioned before, about what really woke me up is the fact that as we were doing our counterterrorism, or assisting the FBI with looking at the Muslim terrorist websites. Every time we turn around toward the end, we were bumping into a federal agent. And not only that, federal agents were posting terrorist material. I've got this documented. It's elsewhere. It's not just in my hands, by the way, so you can come in here and look all you want. And even if you did find it, trust me, there's redundant copies everywhere that you'll never find. But the fact of the matter is, and stuff that mutually assured destruction documents. Listen carefully to those who are recording this. Mutually assured destruction documents. So if anything does happen. But that said, I'm just considering publishing all of this, and in conjunction with Canada Free Press, and we'll see what happens. But I just wanted to let you know that there's more to this, and it's everything is not as what it seems. Everything is not what it seems to be, and that goes well beyond Tom Bowerly's issue. That goes into what we deal with on a daily basis, or not on a daily basis, but on a weekly basis. So, folks, that's all part of it. And how does this relate to you? Because it relates to you because there are people out there, there are websites out there that supposedly deal with the Islam as being the ill of everything. And true enough, they're correct, but they don't go far enough to say, look, there's this linkage here with the investigators and the people who are being investigated. And it's sad. And by the way, you can find information, too, if you search it. And I think I'm going to put this up on the website, too. Fox News 5 out of New York City went and investigated this one compound. Yeah, they saw the school bus at the compound with the bullet holes in it. They saw the practice range with the, where they were physically preparing. And, of course, they talked to the neighbors who watched the members perform paramilitary maneuvers. We have photographs of this as well. I think we published a couple, but they really haven't made the rounds. I think I'm going to just publish everything, and to hell with everything. I'm sorry for my language if that's offensive. I apologize, but you know what? I think I'm just going to publish it all.
Yeah, that probably wouldn't be a bad idea. And but give people a better understanding of the big picture and the whole story.
Yeah, just please reserve judgment. And when you look at a website that has true information, understand too that it may not have the entire story. There's a lot of great people out there. I mean, a lot of great people, a lot of great writers, better than me, but a lot of people who are bringing the truth to you all, and we will certainly point you in the direction of those. And with respect to the other, we will remain silent. But thank you for listening to that, and I just wanted, that was on my heart today, and I just wanted to get that off my chest. Thank you for bearing with me, Joe. Let's get into some other news. Stan, okay. God bless Stan Dale, by the way. I've got a lot of questions for him. Joe, speaking of Stan, did you hear? Sandy sent this to me, and I saw this, and I couldn't figure this out. There's a YouTube on this on Fukushima and on radiation, about how radiation.
I didn't see that report, but I do have one report here on Fukushima that a radioactive fish was at 124 times the safe level caught near Fukushima. It had 12,400 baraquils per kilogram of radioactive cesium in it, and the maximum allowed is 100 in food.
Okay, well, wait. This is kind of the opposite. Sandy says this. She said, and she provided this link. It's on veteranstoday.com, veteranstoday.com. She said, I watched the video. It's an hour and a half long, but I don't think, well, anyway, she asked, are we being lied to about the harm of nuclear radiation? Now, just stop and think of that for a moment. If you we have preconceived ideas, and I don't have any doubt in my mind that radiation is harmful, or overdose. Anything in excess is harmful. Of course,
you think
radiation.
It's overhyped?
Well, she writes this. According to the writer, we're being scammed. Back in the day, before all the regulation, this source used to swim in the spent fuel pool of reactors. Now, this is not what's. I mean, don't blame Sandy. Don't blame me. This is on Veterans Today from January 12th. Is radiation a scam? Okay. And this person, the author, says he swam in the spent fuel pool of reactors and even drank the water. Now, his name is Galen Windsor. And the question she raises is this true? Is this something, is the radiation factor being overhyped? Now, I personally, I'm bringing this up only because this is what others, Sandy, by the way, you're in good company. I got about 4 or 5 different, or more than that, questions about this. But this is something I think we should ask Stan about.
When we can, because I have a report here yesterday we didn't get to. U.S. sailor crippled by Fukushima radiation speaks out on government lies. And it was a U.S. Naval Administration officer severely affected by Fukushima radiation telling his story, further exemplifying why the U.S. government cannot be trusted to inform the public on the dangers of Fukushima. This person was involved in the USS Ronald Reagan rescue efforts following the 2011 Fukushima nuclear plant meltdown, and Steve Simmons experienced devastating symptoms several months after returning home. And he gets into these, him and 70 other sailors with similar ailments, from thyroid cancer, brain tumors, to leukemia. Despite radiation decontamination, Officer Michael Seaborn detecting incredibly dangerous radiation levels while on the Reagan, the Department of Defense continued to claim levels were safe. And now we have this.
I just want the truth. And I think every member, every person listening to this is entitled to the truth and the plain truth. I don't want the issue to be overstated. I don't want it to be understated. I want the exact truth, what's going on. And I want to know why in the world we don't have all of the armies, everybody under the control of the United Nations going over there to, if the United Nations has any legitimate purpose, why wouldn't they be over there doing whatever they could to contain this? Or perhaps is this a window of exposure to their gutless, useless existence?
Possibly. And that's something we're going to talk to Stan about when he comes on. Moving ahead here, Obama on executive actions. I've got a pen and I got a phone, and I will use them without congressional approval. Here's a quick audio, 137 on Obama, of what he said today. Here we go.
Things that I'll be emphasizing in this meeting is the fact that we are not just going to be waiting for legislation in order to make sure that we're providing Americans the kind of help that they need. I've got a pen and I've got a phone, and I can use that pen to sign executive orders and take executive actions and administrative actions that move the ball forward in helping to make sure our kids are getting the best education possible, making sure that our businesses are getting the kind of support and help they need to grow and advance, to make sure that people are getting the skills that they need to get those jobs that our businesses are creating. And I've got a phone that allows me to convene Americans from every walk of life, nonprofits.
Okay, so there you heard it. He's calling. The president is calling for all hands on deck to assist the economy. Obama is urging his cabinet to identify ways to keep his administration relevant to people struggling in the up and down recovery. 2 weeks left before delivering an economy-focused State of the Union address to Congress, Obama is picking up the pace of his jobs message and demonstrating how he can advance his economic agenda administratively and through his ability to coax action from important interest groups. We're not
business as usual then, right?
We're not going to be waiting for legislation in order to make sure that we're providing Americans the kind of help they need. I got a pen and I got a phone. And he goes on to say he will use it to make executive actions acting outside of Congress. And this is the agenda. And just like I said maybe a week and a half ago, there's a guest on Ed Schultz, and this guest was a pro-Obama guy, and he said, do not be a lame duck president, Obama. Use your executive actions, executive order powers to get your agenda put through. And this is what the Democrats, most of the Democrats, probably some of the Republicans are calling for, and this is what they're going to do. And no matter how unconstitutional or illegal it is, that doesn't seem to matter at this point. This administration, whether it's been directly responsible or indirectly responsible, has gotten away with so much, has not been held accountable for anything. It just doesn't matter. I mean, who's going to stop them? That's the mentality I see them having. What are you going to do about it?
My question is, and I'm sure the listeners share in this as well, even those people who are not familiar with or not under or live outside the United States, my question is, if you are a senator or a congressman, if you're one of the members of the House or the Senate, how can you allow this power grab to go by without saying, no, you're not going to do this. You're not going to operate outside of the constitutional law. So the reason I mention this is the silence that is being met by such a statement indicates to me a consent by the congressmen, by the U.S. House and Senate. In my view, it represents the fact that, in this further substantiates the fact that if you have anyone out there, a friend, family member, who says, well, just wait until just wait till the midterms. Just wait till the midterms. We'll get everything back. Folks, look at what's going on today. We have a power grab by the executive office, and you've got the most useless Congress in the history of the country right now who are allowing this to go on. So consent, or their silence, is their consent to being ruled by executive fiat, in my view. How else can you explain it? Otherwise, you'd have the Speaker of the House, you'd have the minority whips and so on. You would have them just banging down the door. I know if I was in Congress, I wouldn't be in Congress for very long. They'd probably censure me and toss me out, or put me in the reflecting pool with Fannie Fox. Oh yeah, that happened back in the 70s. But you get my drift. Why aren't our representatives and Congress and senators, why aren't they pounding at the door of the White House saying, no, we're not going to do this, or convening special meetings and saying we've got an out of control, rampant executive branch that is usurping our power. Again, their silence indicates consent, and not only consent, but perhaps even collusion. And that, to me, suggests that the capturing of our country has been complete. If you've got a differing view on that, I'd certainly like to hear it. But I do believe that's what we're seeing.
Yeah, and it doesn't say in the Constitution, if Congress does not do what the president wants, you have the power to use executive orders to get your agenda through. But we see this constant battle, whether it's Bush when he was in office, he signed a lot of executive orders too. And I'd say a lot of them were just as illegal as this one is. And when you have executive orders that are turned into law, that's where it needs to be focused, or turned into policy. That's where we need to focus on. Because there's a lot of executive actions that are taken, most of them meaningless, or memorandums, presidential memorandums, declaring certain days to be...
They're administrative in nature.
But it's the executive orders and executive actions where they are calling for a specific law to be implemented that wasn't there before, usually unconstitutional. And this is what we are seeing, just this slow, subtle, incremental. And it's not so incremental now. It used to be. But when this country was first founded, there was equal powers between the executive branch, the judiciary branch, and the legislative branch. Not so today. We have an out-of-control judiciary branch where they've become what are now known as activist judges that are making laws even though they're not supposed to.
Just to give you, ladies and gentlemen, a background of executive orders, executive orders, just so you understand this. Now, there is no real constitutional provision, nor is there any type of statute that exists or explicitly permits executive orders. Now, there's a vague, very nebulous grant of executive power. If you look at Article 2, Section 1, Clause 1 of the Constitution, there is this implied consent of executive orders. Now, most of the executive orders use the constitutional reasonings of Article 2, Section 1, Clause 1 as the authorization for permission of their issuance, to justify their issuance. They're done there's kind of a gap there between the laws and then the operation of the government. It's kind of done, at least in theory, it's done to smooth out the kinks and kind of keep everything running properly. Now, there are other types of orders issued by the Oval Office, and these are merely administrative orders. They're not executive orders. They're administrative orders, and there's three types. There's a presidential determination, a presidential memorandum, and a presidential notice. And you can find this, I'm sure, if you go to Wikipedia or others. Dr. John Coleman has written extensively about this and other things in his book about the Constitution. You can find it online. But even executive orders go back to George Washington. So you can take a look and see. So there is precedent there. But until the mid-50s or early 50s, there were not any rules or guidelines outlining what the president could or could not do through executive orders. The only time this became an issue, and this is important when you're talking with people who really have their act together and they know the history of things. If you note, the Supreme Court ruled in Youngstown Steel versus Sawyer. This is back in 1952. This is under Truman, when he placed all the steel mills under federal control. The Supreme Court ruled that it was unlawful. He couldn't do this. But wars have been fought upon executive orders, including, folks, remember under Clinton, in his second term, the Kosovo War. Remember that when we were active in Kosovo? There was an executive order behind that, and that lasted from February of 1998 through June of 1999. So there is precedent here. However, it's gotten out of control. So for Obama to put this into play by executive order, my question, Joe, and I had this earlier during the show prep, is what kind of executive order could Obama or any occupant of the White House do by issuing an executive order to advance or to impact the economy in a favorable way? But this is what Obama's saying. He will use the power of executive orders to fix the economy, given the fact that he's a Keynesian he's adherent to the Keynesian economic theory or model of economics. How is this possible? So perhaps you might have some additional information on what his intentions are.
Okay. We have to. I want to do it. Look into the history of executive orders, how they came about. Well, I need to look at certain laws, and that's something that I was hoping to get to today as my research, but didn't get a chance. I don't know if you saw this. There is some tension between some Israeli and U.S. people going on right now, and the U.S. slams Israeli defense minister attack on Kerry. There was a senior official today, on Tuesday, urged Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to publicly disavow a complaint by Israel's defense minister that John Kerry has a messianic obsession with Middle East peace. And I saw this as an interesting article, and I think there's a lot more to the whole situation than we'll ever know until they complete their deal. But it says the official made a highly unusual demand as fresh tension erupted between the governments of Obama and Netanyahu, after the minister, Moshe Yaalon, was quoted as branding the U.S. Secretary of State, who has made 10 trips to Israel since March, a nuisance. We expect the Prime Minister to put this right by expressing publicly his disagreement with the statements against Secretary Kerry, the negotiations with Pakistanis, and Kerry commitment to Israel's security, a senior State Department official told the Associated Press. The remarks of the Israeli defense minister, if accurate, are offensive and inappropriate, especially in light of everything that the U.S. is doing to support Israel's security needs, said Jay Carney. Kerry has teamed up and been working nonstop in their efforts to promote a secure peace for Israel because of the deep concern the U.S. has and the deep commitment the United States has for Israel's future and the Israeli people. To question Secretary Kerry's motives and to distort his proposals is not something we would expect from defense minister of a close ally. Israel's top-selling newspaper, JETRADIO, quoted Yaalon as expressing the hope that Kerry would end his peace push and focus his energies elsewhere. The American plan for security agreements that was shown to us isn't worth the paper it was written on. Yaalon was quoted as saying in private conversations with Israeli officials, accusing Kerry of being naive. State Department spokesman Jen Psaki, using similar language to Carney, registered dismay at the comments, considering Kerry had been working day and night to try to promote a secure peace for Israel because of the Secretary's deep concern for Israel's future. Kerry coaxed Israelis and Palestinians back into direct negotiations last summer and has since shuttled tirelessly between the two leaderships in a bid to keep the talks alive with an April deadline looming. Secretary of State John Kerry, who arrived here determined and who operates from an incomprehensible obsession in a sense of messianism, can't teach me anything about the conflict with the Palestinians, Yaalon was quoted as saying. The only thing that might save us is if John Kerry wins the Nobel Prize and leaves us be. So as we see here in this Middle Eastern talks, they talk about the April deadline. That's something we're going to have to get into possibly this Friday because it's very significant, the timing in April and why that's here. But the tensions between the people inside the governments of the U.S. and Israel, going at it. And this isn't something I've really paid attention to until the last few years of the Bush administration and then through the Obama administration. But it's something that I haven't seen, the tension between the two governments so high. And it's something that we have to keep our eyes out for the increase of this. And we have the Iranian deal going on right now. And there's a lot of news today about this. Obama is saying, give peace a chance. President Obama talked briefly about the Iran nuclear deal and said, give peace a chance via the Poole report. And, people will say, well, what's wrong with peace? Well, are you against peace? And we're told countless times in the Bible, in Jeremiah chapter 8, verse 11, it says, for they have healed the hurt for the daughter of my people slightly, saying, peace, peace, when there is no peace. In 1 Thessalonians chapter 5, verse 3, it says, for when they shall say peace and safety, then suddenly destruction cometh upon them as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. And there are many other examples in Scripture about what is happening here and what would happen here. And also, for those who might have missed it or not heard, Ariel Sharon died over the weekend, and he was the former Israeli prime minister. And there was a Pastor Paul Begley, who will be on Pastor Paul Begley's show this Friday from 1 to 3 p.m. Eastern Time, the last 2 hours of his show. And he's covered this a lot about Ariel Sharon and the prophecy of the rabbi who was 108 years old.
Kaduri, Rabbi Kaduri.
Okay. And what you missed is the article I sent you about Kerry and the Israeli defense minister going at it verbally. But and I asked, have you ever seen the tension so high between the U.S. and Israel? Because we've seen a lot with this administration, and I've only seen the last couple of years of Bush in paying attention to this whole world scheme, and I don't remember that infighting like we have now.
You've got to go back toward the early 1948. Take a look right after Israel was created as a state, and then look at there was different tensions coming from different areas, from the State Department to the Executive Office to, at times, from the Defense Department. I mean, there were different tensions, but in this particular case, the tensions here are a lot different. Now, there's this push, Joe, and we didn't get a chance to talk at length about this, but there's this push. The two-state solution is essentially a done deal, and the bargaining chip behind this two-state solution, and I say that I don't believe two-state solution is their term, not mine, I guess is what I'm trying to say. What's taking place is Israel wants Assad out, U.S. wants Assad out, Saudi Arabia wants Assad out. So in exchange for taking Assad out, there's Netanyahu and Israel is being forced to succumb to a nation state of Palestine. But the problem is, because their thinking is, well, Assad at the nation state level is very formidable. It's a formidable foe. Would be less formidable than the Palestinian state. You see that line of reasoning there. Because the Palestinian state would not have the chemical, biological weapons, the army, the formidable army that Assad has. So by taking Assad out and creating the havoc there in that country, then, of course, the Palestinian state would be less of a threat, as would Syria. But that's according to the intelligence insider that called last night, and I've been speaking with. That's flawed logic. Not only flawed logic, that is extremely dangerous logic, but that's what's behind this. And that's a very, very oversimplification of this. But that's the direction in which this is being planned. So in exchange for Assad being taken out, which will happen, folks, they have not gone off that. So this is going to happen. In exchange for that, they're going to have to put up with a Palestinian nation state. Period. And now what you're seeing here is the same thing that arose during the second term of Bush, where they're talking about this messianic, let's look at the Bible kind of approach to see what we can bring about based on the Bible.
Right,
I know that sounds weird. Yeah.
What you talk about is they are using the King James Bible to put these things in place, either to try to deceive people. At the same time, those who are awake and understanding and have that foundation in the Lord will see otherwise.
Very good. Very well said, yes, exactly.
But this is something that we're going to have to continue to keep our eyes on. And I talked about the deadlines. The April deadline is significant for the peace solution. And I'll have to show you why after the show.
The moons as well? Or no?
Yeah, that plays a part of it, but this is a different
feast days,
different
the
thing.
And all this, man. We're in my view, Joe, I think we're running headlong into biblical prophecy here.
Well, just to give you an understanding, of what I'm talking about, we had in 2001 the 9/11 attacks, and then if you look, 7 years later was 2008, we had the economic crisis here in the U.S., and when you start getting into these different dates and timelines, not to predict when the Lord's return is, but to look at what people have put together with interesting events and things that happen. It's very eye-opening, and it does tie into the moons, the blood moons that are coming to this year, to next year, both on Passover and the Feast of Trumpets, which is a very rare occurrence. Also here, before we go to break, some economic news. America's dwindling economic freedom, a new economic index for 2014, economic freedom index for 2014 was released, and the United States has dropped below 10, the top 10, to number 12. And it says world economic freedom has reached record levels according to the 2014 Index of Economic Freedom, released Tuesday by the Heritage Foundation, the Wall Street Journal, and the Wall Street Journal. But after 7 straight years of decline, the U.S. has dropped out of the top 10 most economically free countries. I mean, what does that say about us? It goes on to say it's not hard to see why the U.S. is losing ground. Even marginal tax rates exceed 43%. It cannot finance runaway government spending, which has caused the national debt to skyrocket. The administration continues to shackle entire sectors of the economy with regulations, including healthcare, finance, and energy. The intervention impedes both personal freedom and national prosperity. But as the U.S. economy languishes, many countries are leaping ahead thanks to policies that enhance economic freedom, the same ones that made the U.S. economy the most powerful in the world. Governments in 114 countries have taken steps in the past year to increase economic freedom for their citizens. 43 countries from every part of the world have now reached their highest economic freedom ranking in the index's history. And the number one economic freedom place is Hong Kong, followed by Singapore, Australia, Switzerland, New Zealand, Canada, Chile.
Stop right there. The first part, where is that? That's the Eastern
China.
Bloc. China? Hong Kong? Well, Hong Kong is
Singapore,
yeah.
Australia, Switzerland, then New Zealand. Those are the top 5.
And
all, except for Switzerland, are in the Far East, and
right.
Switzerland being in Europe.
Hey, but where? Yeah, exactly. And where do you see all the money going to, all the gold, all the wealth being transferred to? But that area. So, and soon you're going to see the oil being given to China when the Saudis are going to. So the Saudis are looking at Egypt, they're looking at the CIA, they're looking at our government, and they're saying, hey, guess what? We saw what you did in Egypt. We saw to America. We saw what's going on, and we see the writing on the wall. So we are pushing Saudi Arabia into the arms of China, and again, what's an answer to a struggling economy or economic problems of a country, but cheap oil, cheap energy? This is what we're going to see. We're going to see Saudi Arabia strike deals with China instead of the United States with what we enjoyed at one time, the lower energy costs here in the United States, single-handedly by the globalists, including the face man of Obama, has now transferred, or is in the process of transferring that energy. If you want to call it cheap energy, I guess everything is relative and subjective, but you'll find it going into China. And of course, that's going to enhance China's economic position. Before we go, I just want to say this. People will like this, I'm sure. It's kind of a cryptic remark, but to whom it's intended, you'll understand. I just want to say welcome and thank you very much to a listener outside of Nashville, Sylvia. God bless you. Thank you very much for listening. And, of course, people might say, well, who's Sylvia? Nobody. If you connect the dots, you might understand. Anyway, thanks for listening.
Sorry for that dead air. That was my fault. We're going to go to break.
Have you found yourself just not having the time necessarily to read a book that you wanted to read like 1 second after, for example? I got a great deal for you. I'm very, very proud to announce that Audible.com we're partnered up with Audible.com. They're a leading provider of premium digital spoken audio information and entertainment on the Internet. Folks, it's a consumer service that allows you to choose audio versions of your favorite books with a library of over 150,000 titles. Now, there are other such entities out there. Audible.com is the leader. You can purchase individual books, or for real savings, you can sign up for an Audible listener program. Now, it gives you the book credits each month for a low monthly fee. Got to tell you, all you need to do You can get a free audiobook and a 30-day trial by signing up through our specific URL. Now, folks, grab a pen and write this down, okay? It's audibletrial.com/CFP-radio, okay? Real simple. audibletrial.com/CFP-radio. Type that into your browser, and that'll take you over there. And once you get there, they'll give you an opportunity to get a free audiobook and a 30-day trial by signing up at that URL. Lastly, once again, audibletrial.com/CFP-radio.com. Now, you know what? I just want to make sure I'm accurate here. Can you believe this? Here I go talking about this. Yes, that's correct. CF Radio. Okay, I just want to make sure we get it right. Great program, great people. That's audible.com.
For those of you who signed up, please let us know what you think by sending us an email.
Absolutely. Just, yes, that's CFP Radio. Somebody had sent me an email just now saying, hey, you don't need that or the dash there in CFP Radio. I'm just double-checking that as we speak. Can you believe this? This is live radio, of course. But
let's just come back without intro music as we have Stan on with us.
You know, Stan, I'll tell you what, I can't wait. Stan, welcome to tonight's program.
Well, glad to be here again. We've made it through another week, guys.
We have indeed.
Yeah, and some interesting things are going on. I saw the links you sent me, Stan, on the ice on debris field. Which I think, let's just start out right there, as this is a hot topic, popular topic, and people are curious as to what's really going on.
Can I put my bicycle helmet away, Stan?
Yeah, get a tinfoil hat in place of it.
Okay.
Bicycle helmet. Yes. Well, I think it was in September, wasn't it, when we did the show last year, looking at the path of ISON, and we discussed how the debris would, from the tail of ISON, would probably be hitting Earth, or Earth would be passing through it, depending on your point of view, between 1st of January and end of January now, this year. I don't think that the path of ISON's debris trail that they're now picking up on some of the amateur telescopes is what we need to worry about, so much as what debris that ISON left as it passed Mars, and that was back in September, late September 2013, and then it went on into the sun. Now, some of the debris that blows out from ISON as it broke up on the other side of the sun in its perihelion position, that debris we may catch the edge of it as fine dust particles, which will put on an interesting show. And strange as it may seem, we are getting an increase in bright lights in the sky, flashes and meteorite impacts now. So we keep our eyes and ears open over the next week or so. We may be seeing what I estimated would happen in this month. It doesn't mean this will be the end of the comet-tailed debris from other comets that have done a near-sun pass in this recent time and the rest of this year. But anyway, as far as ISON, I think we're going to be seeing some debris from that as meteorites here on Earth. Interesting to see, and I'm not worried about it. I think it'll be an interesting show if it occurs. It is interesting, however, that it's, what is it called here? There's a group that does monitoring for shortwave radio, and they have said that the ice and debris may be, impacting communications, whatever. If it's that thick, I doubt it. But there is a defense warning that they mentioned in this, which does warn people to learn the old duck and cover techniques of the early 50s when we had the threat of nuclear war between Russia and the United States.
Yeah.
And of course, you remember how they used to say duck and cover, get under your desk and all that kind of stuff? Well, this actually did save some lives or damage. We had children in Russia last year when that meteorite did break up over Russia and explode and hit the dirt and cause extensive damage to that little town. The teacher in the class that did that saved 44 students by telling them, get down, duck, and cover up under your desk. And she was standing there telling them all this, and they were doing it. And then the shockwave hit and blew out the windows and, cut her arm and whatever. She lived through it. But she got damaged, but she was saving the children by using that simple technique. So, depending upon how fast the shockwave travels, if you have a nuclear detonation 50 miles away, it might take a minute or longer for that shockwave to hit you in the surface of the earth, to shake up your house and car and you and whatever. With the impact of a meteor, becoming a meteorite, with a large meteorite impacting, that shockwave could travel a wee bit faster, and it might hit you within seconds if you see the flash and see the impact area downstream of it, ahead of you. If it's behind you, it won't be quite as bad as it will be if it comes in, from the other direction aimed at you. So shock waves are interesting in these kind of phenomena, and certainly it is good advice that they give on the civil defense thing to not watch the bright light. As soon as you detect a bright light in the sky like that, like a flash, turn away immediately to save your eyesight. And secondarily, go find somewhere stable to cover yourself and to wait the shock wave that's coming from whatever that was, whether it be bomb or meteor or whatever. That's all. I think it's critical for people to read about that and understand what they're talking about. Don't think it necessarily means that they're warning us about meteor impact, but who knows?
Well, it kind of took me aback when I read that, the duck and cover, and I don't remember who issued that statement, what organization, but I've never heard of somebody saying that there's going to be meteors and they're going to increase. So if you see a bright light in the sky, duck and cover. This is something that people have talked about in prophetic dreams or visions, and even it talks about in the Bible. The stars falling from heaven, whether that is fitting or not, but we are certainly seeing a huge increase in meteors, and definitely an even bigger increase in the reporting of these, and leaving many to ask, well, why now? Where is this coming from? What is it? What are we going through now? Or have we had periods like this in the past? Why this huge uptick in activity in space?
Well, I know that there are reports that NASA is saying that a potentially hazardous asteroid, I think you said nearly a half mile wide, could be heading somewhere near Earth. And this may be precursor events of that thing coming real close to us. In the 50s, you were mentioning you didn't know what agency issued that bullet. It was the Civil Defense Authority. In those days, we had tests of the early warning system on our TVs and radios where you'd hear a tone, beep, and then an announcement would come on. This is a test of your Civil Defense Authority, early warning system, and just a test. This is not a real thing. If it were, you should do blah, blah, blah. And in pamphlets that they published back in those days, they did tell you to duck and cover, and in videos and movies they put on TV and in the movie houses, they showed school children ducking and covering. When the Civil Defense Authority alert came out. I grew up with that as a kid, and so I do remember it firsthand. The situation with a lot of things, but particularly with life-threatening asteroids coming close to the Earth or debris fields crossing us. If officialdom announces this in such a manner to panic people, it's the same old story, with the UFOs and everything else. If you panic the people and nothing happens, you've hurt the society. You've hurt people will panic and do strange things during that time. The Orson Welles broadcast back in the early 20th century did prove that people start shooting at shadows and doing all kinds of crazy things when they think, their world's coming to an end, whether by asteroid or by aliens or whatever. I do think it's time to be looking up. There are a number of signs in the sun that I've seen that indicate to me that the entire solar system is going to be a wee bit unstable, and some of the previously known meteors in orbit around, there's thousands of them that are near Earth threatening type orbits, that their orbits may shift with changes in the behavior of the sun. I haven't seen enough changes yet in the sun to say that their orbits have been altered yet, but I do think that will happen. and even Earth's orbit and several of the interplanet orbits could be affected by some expansions and changes in the magnetic field and the surface of the sun. However, that's down the road. We can talk about that some other day. Did I answer your question about that, Joe?
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. Now, staying on the topic of meteors, we see several people on YouTube and different alternative news sites. Some say we're going to see an increase in meteors due to the ice on debris, and it's going to last X amount of days. Do you know if there was any regular or normal meteor showers that were on the calendar that we recently went through in the last few days? Because there seems to be a big increase, especially on Sunday night while we were doing the show here. There was reports of big fireballs over Connecticut and Japan, and watching meteor scan and different networks like that. You could kind of see that there was a lot of activity. Would you expect this activity to die down or stay the same for a couple of days, or?
I think until probably the 20th or so this month, I would expect it to stay constant or increase a bit, if my estimates are correct. And certainly, I'm not professional astronomer and don't have access to the kind of equipment we need to track particles that small. As far as I know, I think we've passed through all the major known things. There have been 12 fireballs reported on the network, on the All Sky Fireball Network that is run by NASA. So I don't know if we'll see more than that between now and the 20th, but I suspect that it's not over yet. Most of those have been over the New England and eastern coast, New England and down toward Tennessee and Georgia and Alabama. There have been a couple off of Texas down in southern New Mexico, but other than that, they've been over on that side. Now, meteorites, they aren't particular about where they fall as a general rule. So just because they're on the eastern states happening doesn't mean that they won't happen elsewhere on the planet and elsewhere in the United States. It might be of interest for folks to do that are interested, to go to that website at fireballs.ndc.nasa.gov. I'll just send that across to your listeners there. You can put it on your blog talk or your chat room there. As I say, I don't know of any particular group of asteroids or like Geminids or things like that are due at the moment. I think all that's passed for this year, to right now anyway. So to answer your question, I don't know that I was expecting anything other than possible debris from ISON. And it does certainly look like we're getting debris from somewhere because of all the sightings of the fireballs, coming in, which are probably very small sand grain-sized pieces of dust that are entering our atmosphere at high speed.
Okay. I'm looking on your site now, Stan, at standeo.com. Folks, bookmark that site if you have not already. Every day there are countless number of important articles, videos for the day, videos for the week, pictures of the day, pictures of the week, and bookmark that site at standeo.com. I see the article here and I picked this up right before you came on, about the ice quakes in Wisconsin.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, deep booms heard in the middle of the night, cracks open in frozen ground. Ice quakes hit Wisconsin. Now, we had this polar vortex we went through, and they talked about frost quakes, and I think we talked about this last week, the frost quakes. Think of potholes, I guess, would be the best way for me to understand this, is when you have lots of cold and warming temperatures, freezing and thawing, it messes with the roads, and you get these big potholes from the freezing and warming through expansion. And is this what we see when we're looking at these ice quakes or problems?
Yeah, basically, as far as I understand it, what happens is you have little fissures in the ground, say under a long road that's been there a while, and it's been eroded over a period of time. Dust has settled, and it'll leave a little ditch underneath a normal road or highway with tar and stuff on it, but it has fractured over usage, and with earth movements and stretches and whatever. And so water can get in there and down to a certain depth, a few feet. So when it's really cold somewhere, and suddenly really cold, it can freeze the water that's down in these cracks in the highways and landforms and things like that, and it can split the frozen earth as the ice expands, especially if it does it quickly. I think there's a story on that Holly linked to that might even show on the video a farmer going out after hearing this ice quake and saying that their road had ripped in half, down along the median strip from this quick freezing. So I suspect that's where that comes from. However, there are other booms that people have been hearing, and I suspect these may be precursors to a large earthquake, a big earthquake. Now, the reason I say that is that back at the time of the New Madrid fault, and after that in several other countries where we had large earthquakes occur, that several weeks, sometimes longer than a month, before the event, people would start hearing strange booms that seemed to come from within the dirt or the earth instead of in the sky. Yeah. Certainly back in the time of the New Madrid fault, it wouldn't be fracking or anything like that. And so they mentioned it, they didn't have TV, so they noted a lot of things that happened before and after to try to get cause and effect. And so they did say that. You were going to say something, Joe? Or you?
Well, no, it's interesting you bring that up because I was just reading some old newspaper clippings and something about the booms and the sounds and how it pertains to earthquakes. And they were showing articles from, I think, the South Carolina quake and how they called it the phantom cannons is how they explained the sounds. Then,
yeah, that's right. That's right. I remember reading that, yeah.
Yeah, and it increased periodically, seems to be systematically before a big earthquake. Then after the earthquake, it would decrease and they would go away. So it seems to me that there is definitely a big correlation between these booms being heard and the earthquake activity that follows. Now, that should alarm some people because we have the New Madrid fault line. We know the Department of Homeland Security in some of their preparedness and hazard documents lists the New Madrid as a possible huge scenario that could happen. And we hear these noises from Ontario and down through the areas of the New Madrid. And it's something that we have to keep our eyes on. It's almost like the Lord giving us a warning ahead of time. This, along with strange animal activity and other small indicators as to coming quakes.
Yeah, I think definitely that people should be aware of this. I know I'm not trying to make people get frightened and move off the East Coast, but certainly there have been a lot of reports, on the East Coast, as I said a while ago, of these strange booms occurring more frequently and louder than normal. As we approach March this year, it's a 9-month deadline on the signing of the peace agreement in Israel between the Palestinians and Israel, which the United States, which John Kerry is pushing for. Now, under that agreement, which I cannot see Israel accepting, but still under that agreement, the Palestinian Authority are wanting Israel to turn over the eastern half of Jerusalem, which includes the Temple Mount. Now, that contains the site of where, the temple was built by King Herod in the old days, the temple site. And I can't see Israel giving up the most holy site in their religion to the Palestinians. And the reason the Palestinians are picking this is that it was territory that they possessed before the 1967 war, in which Israel militarily took control of all the city of Jerusalem, trying to reclaim its homeland. Now, the thing is so in your face from the Palestinian Authority is this: they know that Israel doesn't want to give up its most holy site. Therefore, they're saying that has to be a provision for us to have peace in Israel, in the Middle East. So they're forcing a confrontation that just puts Israel between a rock and a hard place, saying that Israel wouldn't sign the contract because they wouldn't give up territory that they, quote unquote, stole or took militarily from the Palestinians, who didn't really exist at the time. Now, if this does go to fruition and they do divide Jerusalem, that divides Israel. But if they do that, they threaten in Zechariah 21:3, something like that, I think it is. There's a threat that says to the nations that divide Israel, you will be divided. So now we get back to earthquakes and popping sounds. By March this year, that 9-month period of trying to get the agreement signed will be up toward the end of March. And if the United States does cause Israel to be divided, then I suspect America will be divided. And the long dreaded and anticipated earthquakes on the West Coast and maybe the New Madrid will occur as an act of God to divide the United States, because they helped to divide Israel, Jerusalem. That's just my thought on those things. So I might be way off base, but
I don't think so. Not at all. And we're seeing a time in history when all the things in the Bible, from Daniel to many other Old Testament prophets to things that Jesus talked about happening before his return, it seems like everything that was talked about is in play now. All the signs in the sun, the moon, and the stars, the distress of nations, the wars, the rumors of war. I mean, everything from Syria, all of it is just so in our face. And I just don't see a good ending if this peace deal goes through at all. And we could be on the brink. And there was an article today about John Kerry, apparently a defense minister in Israel, was slammed Kerry, said he was a nuisance for his trips over there, and called him, said he has a messianic obsession with the Middle East peace deal. And as my dad says, and I know you said, that these people are using the script of the Bible to bring about certain things to happen. And it's definitely appearing, it looks like, what they're doing.
Yes, Dan, if I can just interject this. If we're looking at Kerry going over to the Middle East, and obviously, and as I said earlier on, it would appear that there's concessions being made. Israel wants to see Assad gone. Saudi Arabia wants to see Assad gone. The United States wants to see Assad gone. So they're using that as a bargaining chip. If you want to see Assad gone, then you're going to agree to a Palestinian state that does include the fracturing or the division of Israel and perhaps even Jerusalem. Now, having said that, I guess my question is, what side of prophecy is the United States on? And are we seeing a self-fulfilling biblical prophecy here?
It's an interesting question. I've thought about that before. Certainly, if you look at the current administration in the United States as satanic, definitely doing everything it can to go against our faith and our religion, our book, the Holy Bible. If you look at it like that, then they could be intentionally doing that just to kind of give us a rude finger, just say, you crazy believers, I'll do this and show you that you're nuts. It's not going to happen. Or they may be doing it under the direction of beings that they communicate with, in dark rituals, and doing as they're told. I don't know. Certainly they can't be ignorant of the biblical prophecies of this day. It may be other things behind the scenes that are forcing Kerry and the current administration in the White House to take this path, things that they won't make public, things to do with terrorism or some other threat, and maybe they're backed in the corner. That's the apologist position for the administration, and I'm not really one to be in that camp. But those are the possibilities that you might consider as to why they are pursuing this. It's just kind of in-your-face behavior as far as I'm concerned, but there may be extenuating circumstances that drive them to that, like those that are going to drive Russia to be pulled down with hooks in its jaws to the Middle East to honor contracts and attack Israel. Actually invade Israel with troops. I don't think, Russia really wants to do that, but I think they will be forced to by circumstance, as the biblical prophecies say. Is that good enough there?
Yeah. I'm weighing your words carefully here, because this is a big deal. This is a huge, since the establishment of Israel in 1948. I just see this as being an extremely precipitous time, I suppose. And you're looking at the what's written in Psalm 83 with the Confederation of Nations, the Confederation of 10 Nations coming against Israel, perhaps to precede any type of Gog and Magog type of action or war. And I'm just wondering if, does Bill Salas, for example, have it correct where we'll see the Psalm 83 war proceed what's in Isaiah 17 with respect to Damascus and Gog and Magog. So trying to get the order right here. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure it's just a kind of a educated guess, but I can see this coming to fruition a lot more than I could 10 years ago or even 5 years ago.
Yeah, it is hard to figure the order of things. When I was studying with my rabbi years ago about this in prophecy, my rabbi friend, he did ask me. He says, from your Christian perspective, he said, what do you think will happen with the Gog Magog invasion? Will it occur before the tribulation or after or during? And so, of course, he was a Messianic rabbi as well, but he was raised a proper Orthodox rabbi. So for him to ask this question meant that it was very important, and one that he would disclose his Christianity, his roots in that, by asking me such a question, putting himself at risk within his own congregation. But anyway, he did ask that, and so it's an answer that even the rabbis, the traditional, Orthodox, and the Messianic ones are all trying to get an answer to. And if they can't get an answer yet, I don't think I've got hope of proving them one way or the other, because these guys just live and breathe the Hebrew and the ancient Hebrew classic form of it, so they could probably tell us, but they haven't gotten there yet. Unless they have, and they're withholding it and preparing Israel for that time, or getting ready to advise their leaders at that time.
Okay. Well, on a unrelated note, where do you stand with respect to the death of Ariel Sharon and, of course, Rabbi Kaduri, his prophetic statement? And I know that this is briefly mentioned earlier, but where do you stand on that, or if you have any position on that?
Well, I find it interesting. Sharon was not, did not do what I thought was right for Israel. And certainly the Orthodox rabbinical sect that cursed him, they didn't think he did right either. In fact, it's very rare for anyone in the rabbinical caste to curse a ruling leader, which they did. And the curse basically, they say it resulted in his falling ill and being held in that body until the time that he would die. Just get him out of the picture, but don't kill him. I don't know, whether that's what caused it or not, but that certainly did happen. Now, as far as the prophecy that until Sharon died, the Messiah could not come back, there were also clues within what he left behind to the scholars that were deciphering his letter that would indicate that the return of the Messiah would be very shortly thereafter. Now we know that the official return will be after at the close of the tribulation. Certainly, a rapture, which would not be a return, the rapture could occur before that. So, at some time, at the beginning, middle, or whatever of the tribulation period. So I'm paying attention to that. With everything that's happening in the news, with the deadline coming in March, late March, for this 9 months of negotiation over the division of Israel. As you say, things are just lining up so rapid, I can hardly believe it. I mean, it's fulfilling prophecy left, right, and center. So I put some faith in what the rabbi wrote before he died.
Wow. Thank you very much. It's interesting to get your take on this and other people's. There's just so much to this. I mean, as we've talked before, to me, Israel is God's timepiece in a way, and very respectfully, I might add. I'm saying that. I think we could learn a lot from what's going on in Israel to prophecy. But that's just me.
Got a question from a listener here, Stan, and this is a good question. It gets into the West Virginia water crisis, and the question here is about technical water issues with water purification, and they ask, with this specific chemical spill or with any chemical spill, is there a good filter, water filter, that would be able to get these chemicals out?
You know, without knowing more detail about the chemicals they're trying to filter out, I don't have a good answer for that. I know that Berkey and some of the other leading water filters will take out a lot of chemicals, but I don't know whether these are ones that they can get out or not. I mean, the Berkey and a number of the survival filters that you can carry with you won't get out salt, for instance. Salt water, that'll still pass through. So it's a matter of whether the filters can absorb that. And I don't have an answer because I don't know what chemicals we're trying to filter out. We work very closely with Berkey Water Filters, the company, and I would ask them immediately, just over the phone here in the evening, if I knew what chemicals we were trying to see if they could filter out, because they do have a very extensive report on what their filters, especially the black Berkey filters, will take out of the water. I don't have an answer until I know more.
All right, thank you. And we'll have to find out. I know they lifted a water ban for part of West Virginia. I don't know what parts, but it's affected over 300,000 people for almost a week now. And the conditions there have to be pretty bad. But people who have freshwater streams or the ability to get the water aside from the water supply could take Dare to Prepare and a lot of what's in there on water filtration and use that to make clean water. But as I said yesterday, you don't need a earth-ending disaster for a reason to start being prepared, because we see things like this or power outages in different areas for long durations of time and other things that you need preparedness items for. And if you're not prepared, you're in for a rude awakening, and it's going to be a very tough and uncomfortable time.
Well, it's not the end of the earth type disaster like you're saying over there, but if people had done what many of us have said, particularly in Holly's book and her website about preparing for disaster, we tell people to prepare for loss of the amenities that you get from your community, like electricity, water, gas. Prepare for loss of those due to natural catastrophes or war or whatever. And if people had done this, they wouldn't be trying to filter their drinking water. They would be pulling from the tanks they've got stored outside, or from a source that where they store it to drink during the crisis. If it were to hit us, we could survive for at least 10 months here without being uncomfortable with the amount of water we've stored here on the property. We got some of these. They were water drums that hold 2,500 gallons each. We got them. They were the kind they used in Desert Storm, and the company that makes them up here in Denver, I think it is, and they spin them out of this kind of heavy-duty plastic of some sort. But we've had them and used them now for, 12, 13 years. And as I say, if people had been, smart enough to store that, they would have water for themselves and their neighbors for a short period of time until the situation could be resolved.
Stan, are they hooked into your water system at all, or are they just independent of your water system?
They're independent of it. They're
okay.
independent of it.
Right.
I can hook them in if I want. I have to bypass the backflow valve, but I can just put a hose on them right now and fill up my buckets and whatever, and I would be not taking long showers or anything like that, but I would be taking them in. I could heat them, and I could put them through my Berkey filter just to be sure there's no bacteria in the tanks. And in a few hours, I would have several gallons of filtered, water to drink. I could take it straight out of those tanks and put a bit of chlorine in, stir it up, wait an hour, heat it up, and put it into the bathtub, and have an old-timey, bath. So I could bathe.
Yeah.
Okay. We can flush our toilets with the water left over. You just pour it into the bowl, and it flushes whatever's there down, just like you pull the handle.
Sure. Somebody had sent me a question to ask you about that about the situation in West Virginia. People with wells, for example, 50, 75, 100-foot deep well, would they be impacted the same way? In other words, would this stuff leach in quickly?
It really depends on the geology underneath the earth in those areas. The shallow wells, under 100 feet, are pretty suspect, in most times for groundwater leaching of various chemical spills. I try to advise people over here in Colorado when they're digging wells to go at least 300 feet if they can to a clean water source, because it will be a very old water source and not subject normally to intrusion from ground chemical spills. This isn't to say that earthquakes or shifts in the surface of the ground for whatever reason might not someday pollute their wells, but that I prefer to have them 300 to 400 feet down just for purity.
Gotcha. Okay, and that makes sense, I suppose, for anything. It's okay, so the deeper the better, obviously, to keep it pristine. All right.
Yep.
Switching gears again here, Stan. I saw this article on your website, and I did not see this yesterday or today anywhere else. Supreme Court hands Monsanto victory over farmers on GMO seed patents and giving them the ability to sue. I'm not sure how familiar you are with this and how this can affect farmers, but what does this ruling do for Monsanto and for the ability to get GMO seeds that are not, or to get food that are not genetically modified?
Well, first of all, Monsanto is, the big giant in the room, the Goliath, and the farmers were David, and they haven't won this one. It's an ongoing battle, but Monsanto and affiliated corporations are basically going to be able to tell the farmers what they can grow and that they would have to use their seeds. A number of things have come into the courts over recent years using these GMO things from Monsanto. Like one farmer would be using normal, heritage-type seeds that aren't GMOs in his crop, and his neighbor would be using Monsanto seeds. Okay, so the wind blows a bit and blows some of the seeds from the Monsanto product over into the farmer that's not using GMO into his property. Next season, surprise, surprise, a few of the GMO products appear in his crop on the edge. Monsanto spies come out and say, oh, look, you've stolen some of our seeds, and they can sue them or threaten to sue them and say, look, you better just use our seeds because you've been taking our GMO stuff without our permission, and it's copyrighted and it's patented, and we own it, and you're a thief. So it's a fine point in the law, but basically those who make the laws, are those in command and who can do anything they want, and Monsanto is no exception to that. I think it's a loss for us. And so many things, I don't even know if they're properly labeled anymore as to whether they've got GMO products in them. It's really quite extraordinary to let these GMO products loose. The hybrid seeds and things like that. Some of the stuff they're doing is like putting genes from living insects or animals or fish into vegetation to see that it makes them stronger to resist this disease or that. But they can't test them over 20 or 30 years. They put them right into production before we even know what they'll do to our own gene structure. I mean, who needs the gene from a firefly that makes them glow put into corn? Just my corn is going to glow and then I'm going to glow. I mean, that's dumb. But these are the kind of things that they're doing just by experimentation without knowing the long-term effects in the environment and to us as well. It's a loss. That's one that we lost.
Mm. Wow.
Thank you for that. Yeah, and this fight is going to continue to rage on, and there's so much behind that, from Agenda 21 to depopulation agendas that go with the genetically modified foods, that it's a huge issue that needs to be explained more, and that's something we're going to have to do. We have a questioner from a listener in Rome, from Karen in Italy, Rome, Italy, Stan. She asks, where can I find out from Mr. Deo on if he has information on the earthquake that occurred on an island near Sicily? I would like to know if there's more there than meets the eye. And I'm not sure if you're familiar with what earthquake she's talking about. No,
I was hoping she'd have another clue. Was it the Santorini thing or something else? I mean, more recent.
I'm looking here on the map here. Let's check this out. Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't see anything as far as the island is concerned.
Could you possibly email her back and ask her to quickly tell us what she's talking about?
Sure. Yeah, I see a few earthquakes there. We're going to have to ask Karen if she has at least a date for that. And also here, if we can get that information before we go, this is another question from a listener from Margot in Oklahoma. Does Stan know about this huge dark magnetic ball coming toward the Earth from the south? Supposedly it is even hard to see with the infrared telescopes.
Yeah. Well, look, I've heard the reports, rumors on the internet, and I personally have not seen anything to suggest that it's there. And it's only kind of my opinion based on how I feel rather than evidence to the contrary. Some people have been trying to say that that's the Nibiru spoken of in the Sumerian text. Look, I have a number of friends who are astronomers down in the southern hemisphere, and they have connections with the big telescopes. None of them have leaked anything that said, this is what's being hidden from the people. Certainly infrared telescopes do need to basically be in an atmospheric telescope, up above the ground several miles for best resolution. So, I just haven't heard any rumors from officialdom, back doors that would indicate it's there.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's okay. And this is a question for me. Would those same sources, would they, if they found something, would they get it out to the public or try to get it out to the public?
I think they would. They're very straight shooting type individuals, not eccentric or anything else, and they would find a way to pass the information on. We have a number of ways to communicate without going over the internet and stuff like that. But as I say, I haven't heard any whisper. I haven't noticed any raise of an eyebrow and face-to-face things. Nothing. So, I'm not worried about that at this point.
All right. Is there anything on your radar that you think is important to get into tonight?
Well, let me see. Oh, by the way, earlier when we were on the meteor shower stuff, I was just trying to see if we had any meteor showers that were close to now. And we had one that ended on the 5th of January. It was, a week and a half ago. And that was the closest one that we could have explained the meteors with. And it ended on the 5th of January. Went from the 1st to the 5th. It's the Quadrantid meteor shower. And it appears every year roughly at that time, but that's the closest one. So definitely there's just no standard meteor shower that I can see that would be falling right now, and it certainly is happening right now. So that's that one cleared up. A number of people have been worried about Yellowstone, and certainly it is a concern. The deformation or the bulging that occurs there is an interesting thing to watch, and they do record that on various sites, whether it's officially correct or not sometimes, I wonder. But by measuring the deformation or the bulging of the Yellowstone Park area over the magma pool, they can estimate, number one, how much ash and magma and stuff will be blown out of that should it erupt. And at the moment, it doesn't seem like they're worried about the deformation of it. Certainly, no gases that we know of, like sulfur dioxide or carbon dioxide, have been emitting on a regular basis. The carbon dioxide gases, we do see them come out occasionally. I think on the western side of Yellowstone, as I recall anyway, and it will kill maybe some buffalo or animals in an area where the carbon dioxide pushes up and, around a water hole or something like that and kills the animal life there. But then the next day the winds blow and the carbon dioxide's gone, and it was just a pocket discharge. And that's relatively shallow type stuff and not enough to really be concerned about as a general rule. When we start getting reports, if we do, from Yellowstone and neighboring communities about a rotten egg smell, a sulfur dioxide smell, that's cause for concern, because at that point, the magma will be up close enough to the surface to start pushing up the sulfur dioxide gas. From time to time, we do get reports off the California coast of people, residents there, saying they smell this rotten egg smell, and it could be due to a sewer main break or something like that, but it could also be due to magma moving up close to the surface of the earth. which would either be volcanic or volcanic activity or seismic activity. The fact that we know that over the last 20 years that the magma moving along the Cascades up, from California up into Washington, the magma has been clocked at under a mile depth from the surface. That is a concern because it's rising up, and that means that there might be several volcanoes erupt at once, just about the same time as seismic events start to occur on the west coast along the Cascadia fault line and down into the Juan de Fuca. Into the not the Juan de Fuca, but the what's the earthquake zone down there, Holly, in California, the one everybody worries about, the main one. She's tuned out. Anyway. If that earthquake zone that's well known in California is connected somehow to the Cascadia group, then it will be involved in the release of a lot of these gases and volcanoes all at once. And the reason I harp on that is because I did have a dream vision years ago before I left Australia about I was in the air over California or over Washington State, more properly looking down toward California and toward Mexico. And I saw in the dream vision very vividly 6, maybe 8, I'm just trying to count them up here, but 6 to 8 volcanoes erupting simultaneously along the California coast and right up into where Mount St. Helens is. And, with the earthquakes attending that, I'm sure that the long-feared separation of portions of California becoming islands would occur. Anyway, that's on the volcanic bulges. I got sidetracked off onto that, but did also want to approach something about Fukushima and radiation. I think I mentioned this last week, but I just want to underline because I'm seeing a lot of traffic on the internet about cover-ups and stuff about the radiation values. Plutonium, if it were to get loose from the fuel rods, is one thing. You can ingest it, you can breathe it, but basically other than getting it inside your body, the plutonium is not going to be much harm to you. You can hold it in your hand, obviously not in critical mass quantities, but you can hold it in your hand and you'll feel the warmth of say an egg-sized piece of it, but it's not going to zap you with killer radiation until you get a critical mass worth of it. And then it gets to be a problem. But the particles that are radiated over in Japan from Fukushima are not likely to be airborne into the upper atmosphere and blown over our way unless you have an explosion, even a phreatic type steam explosion. It's got to blow it clear up, 40, 50,000 feet or above to get into the high altitude streams to bring it over to the United States. So until that happens, people shouldn't be too worried about, radiation falling, on them and killing them and whatever. The heavier particles, which carry the, gamma radiation emitting particles, they fall into the water and they fall down, and a lot of the shellfish and things in the area of Japan do get the material and ingest it, and of course they become radioactive, and if they don't die and are caught, they would pass on those particles to humans eating it. So at the moment, I don't think people should be panicking over here in the United States about the airborne and even the waterborne radiation. It's the fish that get heavily irradiated that might be a problem, and if they don't migrate over to this part of the Pacific, then maybe it's just due to any bad food would be due to what stuff we've thrown offshore ourselves on the Pacific coast to get rid of it. But anyway, I just wanted to bring that point up. It's not quite as bad as the hype on the internet makes it. So
interesting you brought that up, Stan, because I got I received an email today from Sandy, and actually since I mentioned it, a couple of others on the website Veterans Today. I don't know if you're familiar with that. 2 days ago, an article was published. Now, and this I found interesting. I don't know if this is
it's a read between the lines article.
Yeah, is radiation a scam? I don't know whether you've heard, Stan, of Galen Wilson. But,
no, but go ahead. Tell me, yeah.
All right. He made this video in 1985. Now, the video is hosted or embedded into this article in Veterans Today. And just quickly, he said, the author said this: I was told to watch the video instead. I'm publishing it. It's on YouTube. Why not? The video was made in 1985. Galen Windsor died in 2008. And he goes on, everything we've been told about the nuclear proliferation is a lie. But what I found interesting, let me get to the point here. He said that, hold on, Sandy, I'm getting to you. Okay. The fear of radiation has been exaggerated to scare people. So few powerful people can maintain total control over the world's most valuable power resources. In the video, you can watch Galen lick with the tongue, lick a pile of highly radioactive uranium off the palm of his hand and ignite a chunk of plutonium into a shower of flaming dust. The guy also drank reactor cooling pool water for fun. Okay, and like to go swimming in the pool to relax. We're talking about the reactor pool. He's also spiked the basement floor of his home with enough radioactive material to send any Geiger counter reading off the scale to disprove the fear-mongering surrounding radon at the time. Your thoughts? I'm no expert, so your thoughts on that?
Well, I guess I'm no expert either, but as I say, plutonium in small quantities in the hand is only going to be producing maybe like alpha radiation that your skin will stop, and you might feel a bit of warming from that. But beta and gamma radiation from that usually would not occur until it was starting to become, critical. If enough of the mass was there in one spot and you could hit it with neutron stream and whatever. Basically, it would probably melt down, get hot rather than blow up. But uranium, plutonium-239 is an isotope of uranium-238, and that's the kind of plutonium that Pu-239 that we are concerned with. I'm really not, as I say, the expert in it, but I do know that I've heard a number of reports, for people who have been in the industry, that you can handle plutonium, not with all the other stuff in the reactor rods, but plutonium is part of like a catalytic type function to produce the heat that they want to make the nuclear power stations work. Would I like to have toys made of plutonium for my grandchildren? No, I don't think so, but that's just me. Radioactivity is there. Certainly in the Manhattan Project, a number of the guys working on it in the final days did get exposed to nuclear particles or radiated particles because of what they did with the plutonium that they had there on the desk. They took some of the shielding away and something, triggered it. But I think 2 or 3 of them died from, extreme radiation burns. But for people to think radiation is a hype, talk to the survivors of the atom bomb attacks on Japan, and the survivors of Chernobyl, the genetic mutations that have occurred. I think I would be respectful of radiation and would do my best to avoid it. I have no reason to believe that we should think that radiation is harmless. Now that you mentioned that guy, putting his tongue on this and swimming in the reactor pool, I do remember hearing about it. I don't know if I ever saw it, but again, I don't think I would like to do that. The water is warm coming out of a reactor, and they will vent it into streams and stuff like that. So maybe it's safe, but just warm. Again, it wouldn't be my idea of fun.
It's not Club Med for Stan and Holly Dale, I guess, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Well, I do understand that. We're seeing like a lot on both sides. What's happening over there is horrific. It's the worst disaster in the history of the world. And then on the other side, hey, you can swim in that water, and it's no problem. So it's interesting how both sides are coming out.
And I look at something like depleted uranium and the Gulf War syndrome. There's all these different in Chernobyl and other nuclear disasters that have happened. And I would say this definitely is the worst nuclear disaster that we've seen. I'm not a scientist, but just from my research, definitely. And the side effects from people who have been in the Gulf War who use those depleted uranium as in their ammunition, Not by choice, obviously. There's a sickness that's going around from that. I mean, it can't be ignored, as you said.
Kim, one of your listeners just emailed me. I don't know whether you got it about the Puerto Rico quakes. Did you get that? Just came in.
We're looking right now, digging for this.
What do you think about the quakes in Puerto Rico, she says? Or he said, Kim, anyway.
Yeah, we had one in Cuba and a couple 6.4, 6.5 in Puerto Rico yesterday.
Yeah, there have been a number of them over the last month that have congregated around the islands there. And to me, that is a concern because earlier last year, I saw a thermal pattern and an electric pattern forming between Puerto Rico area and the northwestern section of Africa, and the thing was so well defined. It was a zone that stayed there for weeks, and it was like a new fault line was forming from, say, around southern Spain over to Puerto Rico. And in fact, one Spanish geologist did publish a paper around that time saying a new tectonic plate is forming there. Now, if that's the case, what we may be seeing is it's forming, a little quicker than we thought, and Puerto Rico is one of the points that's going to break first and make that new tectonic plate in the mid-Atlantic. So that's the best I can answer now, Kim. I think I would watch that. It's not a situation to ignore, and it'd be good to find out more about it if we can. You had another question?
Stan, before you get to that question, I just have to ask you this. You mentioned something early in the program, when you first came on, about the threat of a larger quake. And unless I missed it, you had referenced something indicative of perhaps a large quake taking place. What did I miss with respect to that? It seemed like you kind of, or I might have just misheard this. Should we be looking for a larger quake somewhere in the world here to occur based on events that we're seeing, or am I just totally off base here?
No, you're not off base. I'm just saying that look on the internet and in the news for reports of loud booms, mysterious booms over whatever area. And if you get a number of them from different counties or cities in the area, then you can expect somewhere close to that area a major quake to occur. A number of people have been doing studies correlating the stats on this, large boom reports and how long thereafter and how far away do major earthquakes occur. And they're making a good argument for that, so that if we're hearing a lot of mysterious booms in areas that are not normally known for this, along, say, the Appalachians and down, into Alabama and Georgia, in that area, that if those booms are occurring, I would expect within a few weeks to a month to see a large quake. And we know that the New Madrid fault, and we know that the fault lines, including the San Andreas fault, Holly just corrected me, the San Andreas fault up into the Cascadia range up in Washington State and the Juan de Fuca plate offshore, all those are stressed. And if we start hearing reports of booms in Washington and Oregon and and California, then I would suspect that people there better get their emergency supplies in order, if not take time to go visit a relative, a state across the mountain somewhere. Anyway, as I said, the pioneers here in this country that were here for the New Madrid quake, they paid much more attention to the weather and to geology and strange things because it was their livelihood. And a lot of them, of course, didn't have, connections to the big smoke to the cities because there was no electricity and, the Pony Express wasn't too good and things like that. So they would make note of strange things in their diaries, and so that next season they would look forward to see if it's going to make the birds fly or corn will grow better or whatever. And they did report this, the strange booming sounds as far back as then. Of course, New Madrid did result in a large earthquake. So I think, it's not a reason to panic, but certainly we should be paying attention to the behavior of dogs, where they go crazy and run away from home and are disoriented, and to these large booming sounds. they're ongoing, and collect as many reports as you can and try to figure out, like some of the researchers are doing now, what areas of, in particular the United States, these are occurring in. The reports I've seen do kind of indicate it's in the New England states and down into Georgia, which is the Appalachians, and there is a fault line, reasonably recently time that was discovered between there going up into New York. So that's my caution on that.
Thank you for that clarification. Wow. Interesting, and pay attention. I guess that's what we have to do. And the question that you saw, I just forwarded to you in Skype here moments ago. This kind of is an interesting, to me it's interesting. An article appeared in Forbes here yesterday. Iran says tall white space aliens control America. Now, did you see that article by chance?
No.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, proceed.
Well. Now this, and at first I thought, is this satire? And I was looking at this. Michael Peck is the contributing author that wrote this, and he writes that documents leaked by the NSA whistleblower Edward Snowden prove that the U.S. has been ruled by a race of tall white space aliens who also assisted in the rise of Nazi Germany in the 1930s. Now, that alone makes me believe that perhaps that there's a mixture of truth and hype and humor and a fact in this.
Well, now, yeah, I mean, it's just, let me interrupt here. If it's a tall race of white aliens, then that means Obama's not part of them.
That's true. Well, okay. Since you haven't read it, and I really haven't gone through it with the necessary preparation, I'll just kind of leave it at that. If you haven't seen it, it's interesting.
Sorry.
The FSB report, according to this, warns that the tall white agenda is being implemented by the secret regime ruling the United States, and it's almost a very surreal article, and I guess my question would be, this is almost a humorous story to me, but are we seeing this? Because you talk about the deception coming. Are we seeing this preparation here for expect anything almost? Are we seeing the preparation for the Great Deception?
Well, I think so. I've been watching it for a number of years, waiting for it to intensify. And certainly, if you look at a lot of the movies and series on the dish and in the theaters, they are turning our attention toward, dealing with non-human entities, peacefully or otherwise, and raising the kind of global consciousness up to the point that we are not alone, and they could be good and they could be bad, and how do you deal with them? Of course, like Red Dawn, which was against the Russians, but same idea. You could, can you fight them or resist them? And these things, I think, have to be made a part of the global consciousness for it to take effect when Satan starts a deception. Because they will then say, look, our government's been lying to us, they're here, and oh, look, they're friendly. And this could be, we're seeing that now. I think that 2014 is going to be an interesting year, and it may be the year that disclosure is forced rather than released by the governments. And I think it'll be forced so that the people feel empowered and want to overthrow their government leaders for lying to them. And that lays the groundwork then for a new world order to be set up by the friendly aliens, quote unquote. And to that end, we're seeing governments being embarrassed left, right, and center, and certainly our own governments being embarrassed that way. But certainly as their presence is manifest by themselves, and they say, yeah, we've been here for a while, but your leaders wouldn't let us, divulge. They wanted to keep it secret. That will be, the icing on the cake. That will destroy humanity's faith in their governing bodies, no matter what country you're in, and make them bright then for someone who can solve the problems of the world and the people of the world and stop the hurts in various places and the threats. And that's where Satan's man will step in and say, okay, we can do that. Here's your creator. And that deception is certainly close.
I can feel it, and I know many of our listeners can feel it as well. So that's, well.
Yeah, and we're at 7 after the hour, 8 after the hour. And Stan, make sure you share birthday wishes from my father and I and our
belated
audience.
Birthday wishes. I understand. Sorry about that, but nonetheless, belated happy birthday to Holly.
Yeah, she's over there listening. I think she'll hear it in a minute when the feed comes through on her side.
Okay.
But yeah, she's had a good birthday. We did a terrible thing and had a surprise party for her.
Oh, that's great. Well, see if it would. My wife, she would have clocked me afterwards. But how was it? I just got to ask.
Well, I thought she'd probably clobber me too, and actually, one of our neighbor friends that we go to dinner with, every month, we have a group of families that get together. One of the ladies there said, "Look, our monthly dinner is only a day away from her birthday. Why don't we just surprise her and have a birthday party for her?" I said, "Well, okay." So we sneaked around and passed messages back and forth when Holly wasn't here, and planned this surprise party. And then, due to personal circumstances of a couple of families involved in getting to the Saturday night dinner, we had to suddenly shift it to Friday night. So everybody was scrambling around quietly, trying to rearrange plans and deliveries and this and that. And so it all came together, and I took this camera that Holly got for me for Christmas, one of these GoPro cameras that you can hide in your pocket. And, it's the kind of camera the skydivers and people use to film all their exotic adventures. And so I had it in my pocket, and we drove over to the dinner, her not suspecting anything. And I pulled the camera out of the car where it had hidden it and put it in my pocket and turned it on just as we got out of the car so she couldn't hear the little beeps when it turned on. And I walked behind her, and it was dark getting up to the door. And before we'd left even, she called them to tell them, "Look, we're just a little bit late, 5-10 minutes late," which was the plan anyway, so everybody could get there and get in position. And so everyone was waiting inside in a semicircle there, and I held the camera up over her head behind her as we opened the door and came in and shoved it in front of her face there to capture that moment. And we got her good, and I lived to tell about it.
Oh, that's great. Well, what's good for the goose, because I understand a little birdie told me that in less than a month, you're going to be your birthday. So
but
watch out.
I'm not. It's just my 69. It's not my 70th. That's the next year after that. So.
Okay. All right.
Then
so
I can expect trouble.
You think you're safe. That's how they get you.
Well, that's possible. That is possible.
Well, as always, Stan, it's a pleasure having you. My goodness, you're very generous with your time, and so many people look forward to Tuesdays with Stan on our program. You answer so many questions. You put things in perspective, and I just want to say God bless you for doing that, and God bless Holly as well. I will say this. I got an email from Christy who said that I'm not going to give her last name, but Christy, people need to prepare. They need to get there to prepare the book that would save their life for any type of disaster. Christy has it and has been living several months on her stored water, she's got it just like you and Holly. So she closes by saying, "God bless you, Stan, and God bless you, Holly." So there we have it.
Thank you. God bless you, Christy.
All right.
And you boys, too. It's always a pleasure to meet with you on Tuesday and see what's going on and get the feel of the land and the people. And hopefully we can get some of the questions in a bit earlier so that we can, be prepared more.
Absolutely.
I'll have to start sending them to you. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be good.
Yeah, well, why not?
We like blindsiding you, though. It's fun. Switching subjects and coming out left field.
Yeah, you're watching me tread water over here sometimes.
Yeah, well, we get blindsided as well. Stan, God bless you. Have a great night, and give the furry friends a hug. And
I thought you were talking about Holly there for a second, but yes, okay.
Your precious wife a hug as well.
I'll tell you that. He knows better, Stan.
Yeah, I know.
You guys take care, and it's always a pleasure.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, brother. Bye-bye. Folks, you're listening to the Tuesday edition, January 14th, 2014 edition of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. Gotta love Stan and Holly Dale. I mean, I've got so much respect for those two individuals. They are really true, genuine people. Just absolutely genuine, and they've got
Gentlemen, to our third and final hour on this Tuesday edition of the Hagmann and Hagmann Report, January 14th, 2014. Tomorrow, we will be joined by author Paul McGuire, author and Bible prophecy expert Paul McGuire, for the whole 3 hours, his latest book, A Prophecy of the Future of America. And from what I understand, he's sending us some books so we can have another giveaway of his book, and we'll talk with him tomorrow about when we expect the book, so we'll know when to start the contest. But a great chance to get a copy of Prophecy of the Future of America free, and we thank him for that. And also, Michael Arevna will be on Thursday with a lady by the first name of Josephine, who has a fantastic testimony of a near-death experience.
Well, even more than that, I got an email from Michael Arevna, and he wants to talk about the upcoming Super Bowl 48. Did you see that, Joe? Did I send that to you? Maybe I didn't.
I did not see it.
Okay.
But we talked when I talked with him. This is something he talked about that he was putting together, was the Super Bowl, and what he was going to get something prepared for, what was going to be going on there as far as the symbolism. I mean, he talked about how are they, when we talked, I asked him, how are they going to top, the previous years with this Illuminati symbolism, this, all the crazy stuff we've seen here in the Super Bowl celebrations, the big productions that are full of symbology and full of, in some cases, just very odd things. So go to Michael Arevna's website at revelationnow.net and check out what he has put out on that. Something I'll try to do tonight after I go home, because he has some very great insight on breaking down these things. And I don't even think I watched one football game this year. I have not seen, I don't even know where the Super Bowl is. I think I know I think there's 2 games left, the championship on either side. So what is this? You'll have a game this week, and then in 2 weeks you'll have the Super Bowl. 2 weeks from this Sunday will be the Super Bowl. So, and I don't know who's performing. I don't know what's going on there. So I'm going to have to definitely check out what he has put down on paper. And you guys, give us a call at 661-244-9839. That's 661-244-9839. And we're going to go to the phone lines and take your calls starting now. And we're going to go to area code 916 first. Thanks for calling the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. What's on your mind tonight?
Hey, Joe. Doug, how you guys doing?
Great. How are you?
Oh, doing great, blessed. And just wanted to show you kind of what's going on with California. And I got a scripture here. The Lord showed me on Friday the reason why we haven't had rain. And it's written in the good word of the Lord. Jeremiah 3, verse 1 through 3. They say, if a man put away his wife, and she go from him, and become another man's, shall he return unto her again? Shall not that land be greatly polluted? But thou hast played the harlot with many lovers. Yet return again to me, says the Lord. Lift up thy eyes unto the high places, and see where thou hast not been leaned with, in the ways that thou sat for them as the Arabian in the wilderness. Thou hast polluted the land with the whoredoms and with thy wickedness. This is the key. Therefore the showers have been withholden, and there has been no latter rain. And thou hast a whore's forehead. Thou refusest to be ashamed. And, guys, I am really ashamed in a lot of ways of, the so-called traditional church in America, and we have a lot of repenting to do. But those that abide in the shadow of the Most High are doing exploits, and that's the beautiful thing. And I just ask the Lord, Father, in Jesus' name, I ask that just an amazing blessing would come upon Doug and Joe, Father God. I ask, Lord, that you dispatch even greater warring angels upon them, Father God. In the family, Father God, we cancel every satanic and demonic plan, Father God, and we just call down your fire from Zechariah 2 and 5. And, Lord, we just give you all the praise and glory. Jeremiah 16, we'll start at verse 16. And I got to release this in Stockton at a revival, and it was caught. So some things are taught and other things are caught. So your listeners, and I hope you guys catch this. So Jeremiah 16:16. through 18. Behold, I will send for many fishers, says the Lord Yahweh. They shall fish them. And after will I send for many sinners. They shall hunt them from every mountain and from every hill and out of the holes of the rocks. For my eyes are upon all their ways. They are not hid from my face, neither in their iniquity hid from my eyes. And first I will recompense their iniquities and their sins double, because they have defiled my land. They have defiled my inheritance with the carcasses of their detestable and abominable things. So your listeners, just be aware that the Lord's getting ready to do some really incredible things for his children. And he's going to pay back.
Let me ask you this, because I've always found this interesting. It seems like there's a collective conscious, and I don't want to sound like anywhere close to being New Age, but those people who are on the same page spiritually, it seems like there's this collective feeling that something is impending, and that there's going to be, much like, well, after the election and here throughout history, there's a sense of something coming. Is that what you're feeling yourself as well?
Oh, absolutely, Joe and Doug. And a few days ago when we had that one gentleman, and I just asked God that you would just and change that man's heart that a couple of days ago, but that just to me proved to me where we're at, the deception. So in some ways we should be excited about it. So you did nothing wrong, brother. Let me tell you, first and foremost. And then that lady that called, I think last night, she had this urgency. What the Lord showed me, we cannot have any irritation or distraction, and that's key for all of us. And I ask the listeners to really find out what is it in our flesh that causes irritation. Can't have any. So Lord, just show us so that we can get glean of that. And you know, Doug, this morning I just happened to open up to Hosea 9, and when your listeners have time, and Joe, read Daniel 9. And I ask God to give you eyes to see and ears to hear. He is showing us exactly what the playbook is, and we are executing in Jesus' name. Hosea 9, I'll just read verse 1, and then I'm going to go down to verse 7. So it says, Rejoice not, O Israel, for joy as other people, for thou hast gone a-whoring from thy God. Thou hast loved a reward upon every corn floor. Verse 7. The days of visitation are come. The days of recompense are come. Israel shall know it. The prophet is a fool. The spiritual man is mad for the multitude of iniquity and the great hatred. The watchman of Ephraim was with my God, but the prophet is a snare of a fowler in all his ways, and hatred in the house of his God. They have deeply corrupted themselves, as in the days of Gibeah. Therefore, he will remember their iniquity. He will visit their sins. And in closing, gentlemen, I went to the Capitol today in California. They had a hearing. One of the assemblywomen had a bill. It was like something AB 5, something, but it had number 5. And it was basically parental rights of a 12-year-old girl that gets raped and gets pregnant. She can go and, get an abortion. Well, they want it to be brought to the attention of the parents. Well, she presented this bill, and it wasn't specifically for that, but that was the main crutch. And would you not know that it did not pass? It went like 13 against and 5-4. And when I left there, guys, I was so empowered by God, because God is not defeated. And this just proves what's on the land. So in closing, just have your listeners start praying, wake up. Because when I went up and told my name, I told them I was from the foundation of Yahweh, which is God. And I just told them, it's time to wake up. I support this bill, wake up. Pray, and we just ask right now that every government official in all 50 states, Lord, that are rebelling against you and your children, every time we pray, wake up, Father God, we ask that the power of God comes down and just puts the fear and the indignation of God Almighty upon them, that they would turn from their wicked ways, seek your face, and follow your ways in Jesus' name.
Thanks, my brother. Thanks for sharing that. God bless you, my friend. Wow. Interesting interesting context being in Sacramento today, and but folks, listeners, please understand that I think that we are being those of us who really listen and are part of the collective, and that's not a bad thing, but are bound together. I think that we all feel something's coming. We really can't necessarily, with any type of precision, identify what it is. Perhaps we might even it might come from left field. We might never see it coming, but we know the ultimate agenda of the globalists and of the Luciferians behind this. So we all need to be prepared. And I think in this period of calmness, relative calmness, I think it's important to really take the opportunity to check your provisions, to check your spiritual tune. Make sure you're in tune spiritually, and in a very godly way. And that's why we had the Sunday show too, because it's so important. We don't know if that last Sunday show is our last Sunday show that we'll ever do. We are making preparations, just as a practical note, to because of our listener base, that they've been so kind, and we're making preparations to be able to have alternative broadcast means should the internet go down, perhaps on shortwave or some other type of broadcast mechanism. So even at the very worst set, we're not going to go away. It's just we might just, when things happen, we might be doing something a little bit differently. So we're trying to make sure that our voices are heard regardless. So thank you so much. Joe?
Going here to our next caller, I think we have Brother Marcus from the Pine Ridge Warrior Show on Saturday night here at 9 o'clock. That's the Pine Ridge Warrior Show. Brother Marcus, is this you?
Hey, God bless you, Brother Joe, Brother Doug. How you doing tonight?
Fantastic. It's a pleasure that you called in. It's great to have you on. What's going on?
Well, thank you. Well, I had the honor of talking with you, Joe, earlier this afternoon, and it's been a long day since 6:30 this morning out ministering on the reservation here, and we had some crises that we had to attend to, and I mentioned one about a family suicide that we're dealing with, and some other major things out here. But the reason I called tonight, I was informed that there was some discussion in your chat room last night concerning some things that I shared on our broadcast concerning the power of the Holy Spirit, speaking in tongues, and being drunk in the Spirit. And I just want to apologize if I brought any type of confusion or to your chat room. All I try to do, Brother Joe, Brother Doug, is share the truth that I believe that comes from the Word of God, the authenticity of the Word, and spiritual experiences that God has given me in His goodness. I asked the Lord one time, I said, Lord, I want to experience everything that you allowed your disciples to experience. And granted, I've not experienced everything, but I've been blessed by God and His goodness to share in His goodness to experience a lot of deep spiritual experiences with the Lord. But I just wanted to say I apologize to any listeners that was confused or disgruntled with that in your chat room. And I'll be more than glad on our radio show to try to explain, those types of spiritual experiences based upon the Bible. God has not changed. His Word has not changed. And God is really wanting to draw people as close to His heart as He can in these last days. He wants to draw them into the depths of His heart. He wants them to experience joy, power, love, and mercy. And that's all I've ever tried to do, and I'll never change that. And I can't apologize for the experiences that I've had that people might not understand in the Lord. But, I just want to apologize if I brought confusion to anyone in your chat room last night. So just because it did really touch me. I take things very seriously like that, and I was very hurt by having heard that. At the same time, all I can do is always stand for the truth of the Word of the Lord, and I think you know that about the ministry that we represent here. And so I just ask the listeners to pray for us.
Look, Marcus, you do a good job. I mean, we've seen we've seen the photographs of what you're doing. In fact, you sent us some photographs of what you're doing. Your work there is remarkable. I hope. Do we have permission to publish the photographs of what you're up against?
Please, because the people that pray for us and the people that support us, they need to see. And, one reason I sent the pictures is so that the people that pray and support us can see, what they're doing, because it's not me. I'm being empowered by the Lord through other people who assist us. Without prayer and support, we couldn't do it. We saw an entire Native family come to the Lord last Sunday in our service. And even today, through this tragedy on the reservation with the attempted suicide, I'm going tomorrow morning to their house at 8 o'clock and spend a couple hours with them. They reached out to me today and they said, you know what, we need the Lord. And so we're going to go and lead that family to the Lord and then try to get them baptized in water as soon as possible. God is doing something here. But again, the people out there that have supported us and prayed for me, thank God for every one of them, because we couldn't do it by ourselves. But, and so they need to see that. But then also it's to validate to the or the naysayers, I should say, that sometimes for whatever reason, the lack of understanding, or they've got other agendas that want to attack us. Well, the proof is in the pudding, and so again, you've got the pictures, and feel free to publish them. Just the fact that, people that do believe in us and support us can see the lives that they're touching. All this is going to abound to their spiritual account. Every life we touch, you have a part to play in it. And again, like I said, and I will never stop saying this, Joe, I want to thank you and Doug both for, inspiring me to, be willing to step out there on the radio and share the word and continue to see lives touched. You're responsible for that. Thank you.
I'm not sure if you should be thanking us, given your experience. It's not the easiest thing to do, is it? It sounds
easy. Not. Well, we've got boots on the soil out here. We don't talk the talk, but we walk the walk. And every day we deal with victories. Every day we deal with tragedies. And, this is a time that I could really use, the people's prayer, because, I've been doing this for a long time, and I'm really starting to feel the wear and tear on my body and my mind. Going from 6:30 this morning, please don't get the wrong idea. I'm not boasting. I'm boasting in the Lord. But going from 6:30 this morning on up until this present time, it starts to wear on you. And then when, people start to rise up and mock or ridicule or attack, it hurts, because as much as I am in love with the Lord and as much as I've got his power and grace and anointing in my life, I still have, a flesh and blood, a heart. I still get, sometimes disappointed, sometimes hurt. And it's difficult right now. So, if you could just, kind of rally the people around there to pray and send some extra prayers that way, it would really be appreciated.
Marcus, you're doing great. And if anybody out there has any issues with you, your son, I got to tell you right now, Marcus, I've seen personally, we've witnessed what you do. I'm going to tell you, I don't know of any harder working individual than you, and of course Curtis as well. So,
and we've got nothing but excellent fantastic feedback about the show, Marcus, and it's been just great to see people tuning in, and I hope people continue to spread the word about their show. That's the Pine Ridge Warrior show on Saturdays. But I've received a lot of feedback from listeners and from friends and different people who are associated with the show that just absolutely are happy, very happy that you have a show now and you are speaking, as we know that you're anointed by the Holy Spirit, and you are one of the foremost authorities on spiritual warfare as you live this in what you do on a day-to-day basis. And I just tell you to keep up the fantastic work and keep moving forward.
Well, I appreciate truly the encouragement, because, I feel like I really need it right now. And, without God's grace and help, we couldn't do what we do. But I just want to continue to live for the Lord and love the Lord and help as many people as I can. And, we get many reports. I was up to 2 o'clock this morning over dealing with prayer needs for people, responding to emails, answering letters. And again, please hear my heart. I'm not boasting in myself. I'm boasting in the Lord. But, when you do get attacked and insulted and mocked and ridiculed sometimes, it hurts. Now, it's funny. I can stand in the face of demons and rebuke them, and, but dealing with people and personalities and different levels of faith sometimes is a lot more challenging. So I appreciate your support, and you've got, our support here. We love you. We thank God for the, premier program that you have. This is America's pulpit. This is the world's pulpit right now. People need to understand that what you're doing out there on the radio day in and day out is affecting lives, it's changing lives, it's keeping back darkness and moving forward at a faster pace. So, as well as I asked them to pray for me, continue please to pray for Doug and Joe and the family. Continue to support them financially in any way possible. In fact, this is going to be a year, my friends, that you're going to see the adversary step up his game plan to try to divide people, try to divide people with, electronics, ridicules, words, very deceitfully. And we've got to be aware that we cannot stand to allow the enemy to tear us apart. A house divided cannot stand. And saints out there listening tonight, if you've ever given heed to the word of the Lord, love one another, pray for one another. Don't give heed to petty, hypocrisy and gossip and backbiting. That's what has hindered the church for so long. And it's been well said that, by a man of God one time, that we are the only group on this earth that kill our own. You try to, do good and you get attacked. But saints, this is a time to stand in the face of the adversary that's trying to stop the church of Jesus Christ. This is a time to stand up and come into unity of the faith and the bond of peace, love one another, stick together, support one another, because you're going to need each other in these days ahead. I guarantee you, in what's coming these next 2 years, you're going to need each other. And I don't mean to go on a roll here, but I just had to say that.
No, that's well said. Marcus, and I've been getting emails from people. I just got a wonderful email from somebody, Teresa, thank you for your email, saying, it's difficult to wake people up, and when you do, oftentimes you're the brunt of ridicule among members of your own family. It's really the divides among the family, and Marcus, I really think that this is probably one of the biggest hurdles we're going to have to overcome here this year. Is the divides, because people are saying, look, there's something wrong. We need to reconnect spiritually with God, and the family members are saying, no, you're just Looney Tunes, you're nuts, and everything is fine. And we're seeing this divide even get bigger, and the mocking get even more severe among family members, and it's crazy.
Yeah,
so
you're so right, and. What people need to understand, Doug, is, the fact that Jesus is a unifier. He wants people to come together, reconcile, be one unit. But at the same time, remember that scripture that Jesus said that, you're going to experience, family betrayal. You're going to experience those tests of your faith, and you have to learn to stand in the face of it. And Jesus also, he said, I came to bring a sword. And that sword is truth. That sword is what you and Joe are out there on the radio waves every night sharing. And it's going to bring an awakening. It's going to bring redemption, but at the same time, it's going to bring attack. And I've got some things I'll share with you, Doug and Joe, off the phone line in the next few days as I get some free time about some of the things that the Lord has spoken to me about what is coming in 2014 and 2015. And we need to be prepared for it.
Right on, man. Right. Well, we're behind you 100%, Marcus and Curtis, and God bless you, man. You do such great work. So, but everyone
thank you,
must rally around together.
And I so appreciate that. And I won't take up more of your time. I know you got other listeners wanting to call. So God bless you all. Have a good evening, and we love and appreciate you all. God bless.
Thanks, Mark.
We love you guys too.
Bye-bye.
And take care.
Thank you, Doug and Joe.
We'll be talking
Thank
later.
You.
That was Brother Marcus, and his new show is on Saturdays, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, the Pine Ridge Warriors, here on Blog Talk Radio. Bookmark that and take a listen. It is a very uplifting show, and something that we need to get behind, as not too many people anymore from churches to shows, where no matter where they're found, really promote the truth about the Lord Jesus Christ. We're going to move on to another call, 876. We're going to come to you now. Thanks for holding. You're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report. 876, you're live on the Hagmann and Hagmann Report.
Yes, sir. Hello.
Good evening.
What's up?
Good evening, Brother Joe and Brother Doug. Bless you from the very warm and sunny island of Jamaica.
Wow. Okay. Well, that beats the ankle-deep snow and the freezing temperatures up here where we are.
I was so sorry for you guys, especially Brother Joe, who had that problem with his furnace. I heard.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that was rough,
yes,
but
gentlemen.
It was a learning experience.
Well, what's going on in Jamaica? What's going on? You've got to tell us what's happening.
Man. Well, geez, there's so many stories, and I would love to continue to call and get into them. But can I just run around some things first, and then we'll come to Jamaica in a second?
Sure, go ahead.
First of all, thank you, gentlemen, so very much for what you do. You are God-blessed and anointed men of God, and you should be bold in what you do.
Thank you very much for that.
I know that you gentlemen want to be humble, but you are chosen, anointed by God. Many have come before you and have not seen where we are today, have not had the opportunity to reach the people that you reach. Be bold, gentlemen. Be bold, for you are chosen.
Thank you.
Okay.
And you know, we keep looking for the resignation papers, and I say that because sometimes, you know, fulfilling a need is kind of a anyway. Go ahead. I don't want to take your time.
Yes, sir. Firstly, I was introduced to both you gentlemen through Brother Paul Bagley. And Paul Bagley just speaks so glowingly of you gentlemen all the time. So I was introduced to his YouTube channel, of course, and then he mentions you guys quite often. And I found myself gravitating towards you because the message is just so pure, it's so good, and it comes directly from the Bible. And we're in just a thirst, not just in the United States, but all over the world for Christ. And, you know, you gentlemen bring what is necessary for the body of Christ right now, today. We need to have our eyes open, and we need to be aware.
We do indeed. Yes, go ahead. Sorry about the delay.
No.
There's a lag there.
There's a delay. Yes, sir. Well, I am from the island of Jamaica, and as I said, I wanted to get into a few things. The first thing I wanted to get into, I'm not sure if it was Dave Hodges or if it was, I'm sorry, your guest that you just had this evening.
Stan Dale?
Yes, I'm not sure, but we were talking just last week about possible times for these sorts of false flag events or things that might bring us into the wars. And I'm so glad that Brother Joe brought it up this very evening, that the tetrad, the blood moons, and I would really like a nice lengthy discussion about that whenever you gentlemen have time, because it's so important, especially when you look at the dates that it has occurred previously. Now, I also know that you gentlemen should be speaking with Pastor Paul this Friday, and Pastor Paul has done excellently in terms of covering this. So if you gentlemen could just get together and discuss it with him, the fruit that it would bear. That's number one. Number two, brother, as we continue to kick around this idea of who Edward Snowden is, the you know, is he for us? Is he against us? Is he somewhere in the middle? I'm not sure if you know Cybelle Edmonds. She is the FBI whistleblower.
Yes, very well.
Yeah, right. Okay, good. I figured you would. She has the boiling frog post. Well, on her post, maybe about 7 or 8 days ago, she actually tweeted it, and I picked it up there. But it's also on her post. It's a 20-minute video by a gentleman by the name of James Corbett. He does the Corbett Report, and he goes into a little detail about let me see here, just a moment. Oh, right. The chairman of eBay, and how he's involved with this guy that was getting information directly from Ed Snowden, and how they are, apparently it's well known in the media that they're coming together to create some sort of media company, $250 million media company, something to that effect. His name is Pierre Omidyar. Yeah, the chairman of eBay. So I just wanted to throw that little piece of information out there. So, to sort of widen the scope to get an idea of exactly who Edward Snowden is. And that was something that came directly from Cybelle Edmonds. Okay? That's number two. I had to write some stuff down because, so many people and so few times.
Let me ask you
sir.
this. Now, I know that she wrote an article, The Eye Opener Report, Secrets for Sale, Greenwald, Omidyar, and NSA Connection.
That is exactly the one, yes, sir.
Okay. Now, what's your take on that? What do you come away with thinking about Snowden based on her writings? What's your take on this?
Well, now, you see, I'm getting to have faith in Miss Edmonds through originally Alex+Jones, because I've been a listener of Mr. Jones's show for about a year and a half now. And he too is slowly growing on me. I mean, he also says you should ensure that you verify. But back to Miss Edmonds, I feel solid in the information that she presents generally. I'm just not sure what to go with in terms of, you know, these new characters that come into play. I'm not familiar with them. I know no history of them. Therefore, I cannot say whether or not, you know, they lean left or right. I come away with it with more questions than answers, if anything else. A lot of information is there in the 25 minutes. It's just that I'm also very young in this whole awareness, open, being awake. So this is 4 years now I've been doing research, so I'm still very, very young. So when it comes to some people, I'm just really learning as I listen to your programs, and I listen to Pastor Paul Bagley as well as Alex+Jones. You know, I'm starting to get an idea of who these characters are, which I also come to find out is something that is absolutely important, because even in the 1970s, 1980s, we didn't have names. Now we have names. We can attach these to faces. They should feel a lot differently about the way they approach this thing. I'm sure of it.
Very well said. Very, very perceptive. Very perceptive. And thank you. Very perceptive on this. And with respect to Sybil Edmonds, I've got respect for her. I've followed her since she came out. Of course, she's also the author of a book. I don't, what is it, Classified Woman or something like that? I don't recall what the name of it is.
Oh, I just missed it. It was on the. Yes, sir. Go ahead, please.
But no, it's interesting because she does protect the process of the whistleblowing process, the integrity. And, you know, a lot of times when you have a whistleblower come forward, whether it's Ms. Edmonds or Snowden, there's this always a controversy surrounding it, and it destroys the integrity of the message. And that's what we have to always protect, is the process of the whistleblowing experience or the whistleblowers themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Come to think of it, as I'm just going through the last parts of the video now, and I would really urge you, gentlemen, I know you're absolutely, you know, very busy, so many emails, so many people coming to you with all kinds of information, but if you ever do get a chance, I would really like, you know, for just to take a small, you know, a little time, take a look at it if you could, because it's sort of, when you come to the end of it, if it's not Snowden who it's as though the person that he gave the information to is now in a position where they have the information that it is, let me see if I can find his name. His name is Greenwald, right? I don't know if it's that Greenwald now has all of the information and now says to himself, well, I have it all, so why not make a little money off of it? You know, but that's what seems to be the case in every scenario as I picture it. And once you start to speak about making a profit for the individual, I cannot say any longer that you are working for humanity at large. You know, it makes me question
very
that.
Very perceptive, yes. And that's one thing that we ourselves, we're very careful of, too. There's a very fine line between capitalizing on secret information. We would never, in other words, if we had information that would benefit all of humanity, who would sell that? Or you know, put a price tag on it? You would just give it out, because what else can you do? I mean, okay.
Value the person. If you value the person in front of you as though you value yourself, then you are duty bound. You're not. In other words. And you know what? I study law, right? I'm studying law at the moment, so my view is different. And the funny thing about it is that covenants, which appear in law when you're dealing with land law, is also something that, of course, appears in the Bible. So you'd begin to understand that before it was ever implemented as a land system, a system for us, the people at large, it was God giving over to man. So covenants and those sorts of things, they're by God.
Right, exactly. You got it.
You know? Right. Just two more things. The third thing that I just want to bring to your attention is I believe that this year is going to be the year 2014 is going to be the year for the buzzwords, the Internet of Things. Now, it's been bandied about 2012 and 2013, but I believe that 2014, they're going to really make the push for it. They're going to make this thing official. They're going to make it so prevalent in our minds and wherever we see it that we're just going to sort of absorb it naturally. You know, I don't know if you gentlemen are familiar with CES, let me see, Consumer Electronics, I forgot what the S is now, but it's a show that just passed the other day, and, you know, where they show all their electronics, where Apple gets involved and Samsung gets involved, and RFID chips are in everything. They want to put them in socks. They want to put them in your T-shirts. I mean, not that they weren't in the T-shirts from before, you know, but they just want, it's so evident now that everything is just about tagging and labeling that you just come away with it, even if you're not a believer. If you've ever heard a story about something being in your right hand or in your forehead that would be, you know, you wouldn't be able to buy or sell without it, you look at this and you go, wait a minute, I've heard this. If you haven't even accepted it as reality, just like you'd have watched another movie and you would remember, you know, the title of it, the general theme of the movie, you'd go back and reference it, and it should be just the same. But for some reason, people they have a problem seeing.
Yes, they do. And I want to thank you for the call. We're coming up against the end of the show. And
okay.
Already. Wow.
Right. Next time we'll talk a little bit about Jamaica, guys, because Chinese are here. But I'm sorry I couldn't get. I went over my time. But
well, wait a second. Chinese are there. Expand on that. We can't cut loose right now.
I know, and I don't want to keep you, but just very briefly.
You got
they've been coming
2 minutes.
In droves.
2 minutes.
Right.
Go ahead.
Okay, they've been coming in droves. They're literally setting up what you'd call just communities by themselves. They live by themselves. They're completely away, but they are completely taking over the economy of Jamaica. Anything that moves in terms of money now, it comes through China. And what has occurred just recently, if you guys, last thing, JamaicaGleaner.com, www.JamaicaGleaner.com, there's an article there that references some new crimes that have been occurring against the Chinese, because some people in Jamaica, they are not appreciating the way that they're being treated, so they're sort of retaliating. And what the Jamaican forces are doing now is that they're going out of their way to sort of protect the Chinese. It's in the articles, and the regular Jamaican people are upset about it because we are also being targeted. Right? There've been 37 murders this year, and the security minister to help us. And then I turn around and I see an article today in the Jamaica Gleaner that says, well, they had to go to the police commissioner's office to get together to decide how they're going to deal with these people these Chinese who are getting robbed, who were robbed over the weekend in a very affluent part of Kingston, a place that I know very intimately. I grew up there. All right, and I've seen people also be robbed there, and I have never seen this sort of special coming together at the police commissioner's office. JamaicaGleaner.com, guys. I know you got to go. We'll talk again. My name is GL. I'll call back. JamaicaGleaner.com.
Right, and that's Jamaica-Gleaner.
Gleaner.com. Yes, sir.
Right. Okay.
Do you see the article there?
Yeah, I've got it right here. Police take steps to protect Chinese businesses after St. Andrews incidents. We'll go over this. God bless you, my friend. We are up against the close of the program. Thank you very much for calling. Stay in touch. Our contact in Jamaica. God bless you, buddy. Thank you.
Tomorrow night, we will have Paul McGuire with us for the 3-hour show.
Fantastic show.
When he comes on, it's always a great show. Do not miss it, and